Chapter 139. After Mu Feng and Yi Yu, Long Qingyang of the giant elephant martial house, Lei Zhen of the St. Bell City tribe, and a few others gradually awakened from their state of perception, golden bell projections that looked like real objects floated in the air. They looked even more dazzling under the holy light of the illusionary spirit bell at the top of the main tower. At a glance, there were only 8 people left on the stage. They were Luo Mingshang of Imperial Martial, Wei Qingfan and Yi Yao of Imperial Wind, Shen Yunxi of Spirit Rhino, Long Xuanshuang of Haoyue, Bai Yu and Chu Hen of Heavenly Star, and Lei Li of St. Bell City. At the beginning, there were 200 to 300 people, but now there were only 8 people. Less than 2 hours had passed, and the crowd gathered below the stage was now a little restless. These geniuses from the outside world are really talented. An old man of St. Bell City sighed softly. The people from the other tribes also had complicated expressions on their faces. Originally, they had hoped that the younger generation of their tribes would be able to defeat the geniuses of the outside world. However, the reality didn't seem to be so. The geniuses of the outside world weren't ordinary people. Buzz, buzz, suddenly, a wave of violent energy fluctuations rose from the surface of the stage. Everyone's eyes unconsciously swept to where Yi Yao was, only to see the golden bell projection floating above her quietly split open and intertwined cracks. Dense cracks covered the entire body of the golden bell projection. Junior sister Yi Yao is about to wake up. How amazing! Looking at her situation, she should not be any worse than junior sister Yi Yu. Yes, there shouldn't be much difference. Because Yi Yu had already stopped perceiving the power of the illusionary spirit bell, the crowd could not compare the golden bell projections condensed by the two of them. However, judging from the degree of materialization of the golden bell above Yi Yao, it was not inferior to the one Yi Yu had conjured before. Yi Yu, who was in the Tifeng Province's team area, had a faint smile on her face. This girl has always been lazy during her training. I didn't expect her to reach this level. I have to supervise her training when I get back. Fine cracks instantly spread across the entire bell. However, just as everyone was waiting for Yi Yao to wake up, a sudden dong resounded from the stage without any warning. What? The Leisure clan's elder's expression changed. He clenched his fists and blurted out subconsciously. It caused the bell to ring? Seeing the change in Leisure's emotions, everyone was even more shocked. The melodious bell was loud and deafening, shocking everyone's hearts. Along with the sonorous chime of the bell, the projection of the golden bell above Yi Yao exploded into crystal fragments that filled the sky. What was even more astonishing was that these crystal fragments didn't dissipate into the world like the others before them. Instead, they lingered around Yi Yao like a mini whirlpool and quickly gathered in front of her. Buzz, buzz, in the next moment, the countless crystal fragments condensed into a strange rune. This rune was shaped like a circle, and it flickered with a dazzling, glass-like brilliance. This is Spirit Gathering Rune. The Leisure clan's elder's shocked voice entered everyone's ears again. Spirit Gathering Rune? What's this? Everyone had a confused look on their faces. Only a small portion of them were shocked and envious. A bunch of frogs at the bottom of a well. Imperial Martial School's mentor, Red Lotus, sneered in disdain. She opened her red lips and continued, the so-called rune is a kind of mini talisman formation. However, this kind of talisman formation can be stored in a person's body for personal use. But isn't a talisman formation something that can only be set up by a tattooist? A student asked. That's true under normal circumstances. However, a powerful tattooist can use his own strength to transform the talisman formation's power into a rune and plant it in Wu Xiu's body. Then, he can use his true origin to activate the rune's power. Of course, to be able to transform a rune into a rune, one has to be at least a spiritual tattooist. When Hong Lian said that, some admiration appeared on her cold face to a certain extent. It was obvious that she was starting to admire the first clan leader of St. Bell City, Lei Huan. Not only Red Lotus, but even Yu Shan, Li Gu, and the other core mentors from the higher martial houses were also amazed. In the Tensei Prefecture team, Shi Lan's beautiful eyes rippled slightly. Her delicate eyes unconsciously looked at the young figure sitting calmly on the stage. In other words, even you, Mentor Red Lotus, can't form a rune? A young student asked. Humph. Red Lotus snorted and ignored him. The person who asked the question could not help but smile awkwardly. He then asked, "Then, what's the effect of this spirit-gathering rune?" The spirit-gathering rune can increase a cultivator's speed of absorbing spiritual power by at least 3 times, and at most 10 times. The effect depends on the cultivator's proficiency and control of the rune's power. The person who answered was clan leader Lei Shi. Wow! As soon as the words came out, the crowd burst into an uproar. At most 10 times? Damn! Doesn't this mean that junior sister Yi Yao's cultivation speed can only be 10 times faster than normal? At least 3 times faster? Oh my god! This is way too scary. Clan leader Lei Shi, can't you share such a good thing with us? Looking at the crowd who were crying for their parents, Lei Shi shook his head and said helplessly, "I've already said it before. The power that you can obtain from the illusory spirit bell depends on your own abilities. Not to mention you, even the younger generation of our clan can only obtain it with their own perception." All right. The crowd shook their heads and sighed. They regretted not insisting more. During this period of time, the peculiar rune had already fused with Yi Yao's body. She opened her big, bright eyes, and a happy smile appeared on her face. 2 cute dimples appeared at the corners of her lips. The crowd below the stage could not help but be attracted by her innocent smile. They felt as if their eyes had lit up. Wow, this little girl is so cute. She's my cup of tea. Mu Feng held his chest with one hand, looking like an idiot whose heart had melted. Beside him, Zhou Lu, Li Huiyi, He Qingyuan, and Lu Yu shook their heads at the same time. They sighed and consciously moved further away. Brother Chu Hen hasn't woken up yet? Yi Yao first looked at Chu Hen, who was on the other side. Then, she jumped down from the stage like a little rabbit and returned to Yi Yu's side happily. "Sister, I got the spirit-gathering rune." The other students from Tifeng province applauded and congratulated her. Yi Yu smiled and nodded. "Congratulations." However, deep in Yi Yu's smiling eyes, there was a hint of complicated emotions. In her heart, she was happy, disappointed, and even a little jealous. This little sister who had been following her around since she was young relied on her for everything. She did not expect that one day, she would be even more outstanding than her in a certain matter. This sudden change in her state of mind made Yi Yu feel complicated. Yi Yao did not care so much. She was innocent and could only think that her sister would be happy for her. She clapped her hands and looked at Chu Hen, who was on the stage with her big bright eyes. She said to herself, "Brother Chu Hen, you can do it. You'll definitely be more powerful than me." Dang dang dang. Just when everyone was feeling uneasy about Yi Yao's results, a series of 3 overlapping deafening bell rings reverberated on the stage. The invisible sound wave impact made everyone's eardrums buzz faintly. In an instant, everyone's eyes immediately shifted from Yi Yao to the stage. The people from Xingzhong City, in particular, were even more excited. The auras that originated from 3 different forces leaked out from the stage. The golden bell shadow above Bai Yue, Long Xuanshuang, and Lei Li was quietly covered with fine cracks. Its junior sister Yue. The mentors and students from Tensei Prefecture were pleasantly surprised. "Xuanshuang, you can do it!" Long Qingyang and the young geniuses from Bright Moon Martial House were excited. The people from Xingzhong City, on the other hand, were staring at Lei Li solemnly without blinking. The 3 golden bell shadows shattered almost at the same time. Similar to what had just happened to Yi Yao, the golden light fragments that filled the sky condensed into a mysterious glazed rune in front of the 3 of them at a speed visible to the naked eye. What kind of rune is this? The people below the stage all opened their eyes wide and held their breath. Their faces were filled with anticipation and envy. Hum, an obscure and manic energy wave spread out from the stage. The runes that gathered in front of the three were all different. In front of Baiyu was a flowing green light, in front of Long Xuanxuang was a cold white light, and in front of Lei Li was a dark red rune, Gale rune, Frost rune, Raging Fire rune. Patriarch Lei Shi blurted out. The crowd became noisy once again. Everyone was shocked and sighed. It seems that these three runes can unleash the power of wind, frost, and fire. Is this similar to the power of bloodline boundary? If that's the case, I think junior sister Yi Yao's spirit gathering rune is more practical. I can tell that you're ignorant. Bloodline power is bloodline power, and rune power is rune power. The two can't be compared at the same level. Bloodline power takes a long time to grow, but rune power is different. The latter can unleash a destructive power as long as it's fully activated. Before the bloodline power fully matures, it's not as strong as the rune power. Chapter 140. Curse runes were small talisman formations evolved from talisman formations. They could only be used by individuals and possessed great power. To transform a talisman formation into the power of a curse rune, one had to be at least a spiritual tattooist. Gale curse rune, frost curse rune, fire curse rune. Wow! Below the Holy Bell Square, everyone looked at the strange glass-like rune that Baiyu, Long Xuanxuang, and Lei Li had condensed in front of them with amazement and envy. Everyone was amazed and envious. Even from 20 to 30 meters away, the audience could feel the intensity of the power conveyed by the three types of runes. No one dared to imagine just how much their combat strength would increase if they were to combine the power of the seal with their respective bloodline boundaries in battle. While everyone was exclaiming in admiration, they also secretly felt heartfelt admiration for Lei Huan, the first patriarch of St. Bell City. If clan leader Lei Huan was still alive, not to mention the Sacred Star Empire, even the royal families of the surrounding empires would come to pay a personal visit. After all, everyone knew what a spiritual tattooist meant to a country. Moreover, he was a spiritual tattooist who could create curse runes. Amidst the cheers and applause, Baiyu, Long Xuanxuang, and Lei Li walked down from the stage one after another. Senior sister Yue, congratulations! You're amazing! Not bad. If Mentor Shadowless knew about this, he would be so happy that he would get drunk for 3 days. Haha. The students and instructors of the Heavenly Star Martial House stepped forward with a smile on their faces. Baiyu only nodded in acknowledgement, and simply replied with a, "Thank you." Xuanxuang, not bad. I didn't expect you to get a curse rune, Long Qingyang said as he walked to the Bright Moon School area. Long Xuanxuang was really calm, and her calm demeanor showed that she was an ice queen. Are you surprised? Of course, much better than me, your brother. Haha. Even though Long Qingyang didn't get any curse runes, he was still very happy. He glanced at Chu Hen and said, "Maybe third brother will get some curse runes too." Long Xuanxuang raised her eyebrows slightly. She wanted to open her mouth and say a few words, but after thinking about it, she didn't say anything. However, on the other side of St. Bell City, Lei Li looked desolate. She was not as happy as expected. Clan leader Lei Shi walked in front of him and patted him on the shoulder. "Just try your best. This result is already very good," Lei Shi said in a sincere tone. Lei Li didn't say anything. She clasped her hands together so tightly that her knuckles turned white. In the eyes of outsiders, obtaining a hex rune was something to be envied, but in the history of St. Bell City, this was not the best result. However, those young geniuses who had obtained the powerful power of the illusionary spirit bell had already left the mountain range. Moreover, there were still 4 people on the stage. Perhaps these 4 people would continue to set new heights in the future. Only 4 people are left. I wonder what kind of power Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi, the 2 top geniuses, will obtain? and Huang Wu's junior sister Mengsheng. Chu Hen is also not bad. Forget about Chu Hen. Look at the golden bell phantom he conjured. It's obviously not as solid as Wei Qingfan and the rest. That's not enough to obtain a curse rune. He hasn't woken up yet because he's taking a long time to light up the spirit runes on the giant bell. I think so too. Wei Qingfan and Xin Yunxi were both geniuses who had been famous for a long time, and many people thought highly of them. Luo Mengshang was even more so. As one of the four beauties of the capital, her popularity had always been high. In the eyes of the crowd, only Chu Hen seemed a little out of place. In addition, Shang Zhe from the Spirit Rhino Martial House and the Emperor Wind Martial House, as well as Ren Wei and a few others, were deliberately mocking and fanning the flames. This caused many of the people present to casually make a few sarcastic remarks. In the dim and hazy space, circles of white ripples swept out like ripples on water. Chu Hen was at the center of the ripples, and in front of him stood a giant bell with an ancient appearance. Buzz, buzz. A steady stream of power rose from the giant bell. From the beginning, Chu Hen had been constantly infusing his quintessential qi into the giant bell. As his quintessential qi poured in, the ancient runes on the bell's walls were constantly lit up. Countless runes were like vines full of vitality, growing at a speed visible to the naked eye, extending from the bottom to the top of the bell. At this moment, the ancient bell that stood in front of Chu Hen was more than 100 meters tall, and 2/3 of the runes on it had been lit up. Silver streams of light flickered and slid on the bell's walls, and it was dazzling. However, at this moment, Chu Hen, who had been methodically infusing his quintessential qi, suddenly felt a violent fluctuation of power. His clear, pitch-black eyes flashed with unswerving determination, and the corners of his mouth curled up in a confident and playful smile. "I'm not stalling for time anymore." Buzz, in the next moment, an astonishing surge of quintessential qi erupted from Chu Hen's palm. This quintessential qi was mixed with a strange purple light and a dense black light. The intersecting purple and black lights stirred up a majestic power that was like the surging waters of a great river, constantly pouring into the giant bell. Buzz. It was like the sound of metal vibrating, but also like the low ringing of a bell. The remaining 1/3 of the runes on the giant bell blossomed with a dazzling light at an extremely fast speed. The speed at which the runes lit up was several times faster than before. In the blink of an eye, only 1/4 of the runes were left, and then another 1/5. In the end, the entire giant bell had only 1/10 of the runes that had not yet been lit. Holy Bell Square. Whoosh! A low but clear ringing of the bell reverberated in the square. What was going on? Everyone was shocked. The ringing of the bell did not come from any of the 4 people on the stage, but from the top of the main tower in the center of the 5 clock towers. Just now, was that the phantom bell? An old man from Holy Bell City murmured. The crowd looked at each other, and their eyes were filled with confusion. Lei Shi, the clan leader, could not help but squint his eyes, and there was a hint of caution in his turbid eyes. When the crowd saw this, they looked at Wei Qingfan, Xin Yunxi, Luo Menchang, and Chu Hen on the stage. The 4 of them did not seem to have changed at all. Strange, was it an illusion just now? Could it be that among the 4 of them, one of them sensed the power of a rune caster? Zuomo of Tensei Prefecture muttered to himself. The speaker did not mean it, but the listener did. Zhou Lu, who was next to him, suddenly asked, "Tutor Zuomo, we have not come into contact with the profession of rune caster. Why don't you give us a detailed introduction?" As soon as she said this, Bai Yue, Mu Feng, Li Hui, He Qingyuan, and the other students around them all looked at her with interest. "Ha ha!" Zuomo smiled and shook his head. "I have not come into contact with Runecaster, so let Tutor Shilan explain it to you." "Oh? Tutor Shilan knows about the profession of Runecaster?" "Not only does she know about it, but Tutor Shilan is also an expert in breaking arrays," Zuomo said with a smile. He had overheard the other tutors talking about this when he was drinking and chatting with them. As for whether it was true, Mo was not sure. Of course, since this kind of thing could be spread, it was not groundless. Immediately, everyone turned to look at Shilon with admiration in their eyes. Tutor Shilon, do you really know how to break arrays? Zhou Lu asked. Shilon raised her beautiful eyes and a faint smile appeared on her face. Tutor Mo is joking with you, but I do know a thing or two about the profession of runecaster. Everyone's interest was piqued and they all gathered around. Seeing that everyone was so interested, Shilon could not refuse. She opened her red lips and said softly, everyone knows that the power that Wu Xiu controls is called true inner force, and the power that rune casters condense is called Reiki energy, Reiki energy. Everyone nodded. Everyone knew about this. Reiki energy originates from a person's mental strength and starts from the soul. The ancient Almighty said that a person's spirit doesn't die, so the mental strength and mental strength contain extremely shocking power. In other words, rune casters mainly cultivate mental strength? You can understand it that way. Shilon nodded and said, the true inner force that Wu Xiu cultivates gathers in his dantian, and mental strength is contained in the Naiwen Palace in his brain. The Naiwen Palace gathers mental strength and finally condenses a Dao seed. That's considered to have stepped into the threshold of a rune caster. Dao seed. That's right. Shilon replied softly. As the saying goes, the path of rune caster can also be called the path of Dao. So if you want to become a rune caster, you must condense a Dao seed with mental strength and mental strength. After condensing a Dao seed, Reiki energy can be derived. Using Reiki energy to inscribe the power of runes can be used to set up arrays, concoct pills, forge weapons, refine talismans and so on in the future. With continuous cultivation, the Dao seed will grow and the Reiki energy will become stronger. Comparatively speaking, cultivating Reiki energy is much more difficult than cultivating true inner force. This is also the reason why there are so few rune casters. Shilan's explanation was very detailed, so everyone could understand. To put it simply, Wu Xiu cultivates his body, while rune casters cultivates mental strength and mental strength. True inner force gathers in the dantian, while Reiki energy is stored in the Naiwen Palace in the brain. In terms of realms, Wu Xiu and rune casters roughly correspond. A rune caster who has just condensed a Dao seed is a beginner rune caster, compared to Wu Xiu in the meridian opening realm. After that, there is an intermediate rune caster, corresponding to Wu Xiu in the elemental opening realm. After that, there is an advanced rune caster, corresponding to Wu Xiu in the Dan transformation realm. After that, there is a spirit rune caster, corresponding to void piercing realm, referred to as a spiritual rune caster. Wu Xiu's realms are divided into 9 ranks, and rune casters are divided into 9 ranks. Generally speaking, they are the same as Wu Xiu. In a pure face-to-face confrontation, Wu Xiu can instantly kill a rune caster at the same rank. However, once a rune caster is given time to set up a talisman array, then Wu Xiu's fate will be very miserable. Therefore, in Shilan's opinion, it is very necessary to study the method of breaking arrays. All the students in the Tensei Prefecture listened very seriously, and they finally understood clearly what the occupation of rune caster was. Then, Mentor Shilan, do you think the 4 people on the stage have a chance to open the Naiwen Palace and condense the Dao seed? The one who asked this question was actually the Quiet Beauty, by Yuyue, who usually did not like to speak. Everyone else also revealed a look of anticipation. Shilan pondered for a moment before replying softly, in theory, the probability is extremely small, almost 0. After all, if you want to condense a Dao seed, you will need at least 10 years of mental energy cultivation. However, dang! Without waiting for Shilan to finish speaking, 2 deafening chimes suddenly rang out from the stage. These two chimes, which seemed to overlap each other, were filled with a powerful explosive force that penetrated deep into people's hearts and caused their blood vessels to surge. Everyone's expression changed upon seeing this. Chapter 141. Dang! Two bell chimes that almost overlapped each other suddenly rang on the stage. A circle of invisible sound waves swept out in all directions like a tidal wave. Everyone's expression changed. The two bell chimes were filled with an extremely powerful explosive force. It seeped into everyone's heartstrings and caused their blood to flow faster. The people from the St. Bell City tribe were shocked. The power of the two bell chimes had already surpassed all the previous bell chimes. In other words, Lily's result was still weaker than those geniuses from the outside. It's Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi. An excited voice sounded from the crowd below the stage. The young disciples of Emperor Wind Martial House and Spirit Rhino Martial House couldn't help but feel their hearts brighten. They saw that the golden bell phantom floating above Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi's heads had already transformed into tens of thousands of crystal fragments of light. Piercingly cold auras were continuously released from the bodies of these two famous geniuses. The light spots that filled the sky hovered around the two of them, forming a small vortex. A strong wind blew, and the airflow in the square became a lot more chaotic. At this moment, Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi were like the dazzling stars in the night sky, and all the genius students below the arena seemed to have been reduced to the background of their brilliance. Buzz, in just 2 blinks of an eye, the light spots that were spreading wantonly quickly condensed into a mysterious rune in front of the two of them. The rune in front of Wei Qingfan looked like a bolt of lightning. It was surrounded by silver light and emitted a violent and restless energy wave. However, what appeared in front of Shen Yunxi was a dark blue rune that glowed with a crystal-clear water-like luster. It's the Heavenly Thunder Rune and Water Rune. Clan leader Lei Shi clenched his fists. His wrinkled old face was a little moved. The students and mentors from Tifeng Province and Lingxi Martial House were excited. In today's situation, Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi could be said to represent the academies behind them. The mentors from the various martial houses were actually secretly competing with each other. Buzz. Hua. The silver heavenly lightning sigil and the blue water sigil fused into Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi's bodies respectively. Shortly after, the two of them woke up from their state of perception at almost the same time. In an instant, an extraordinary and powerful aura rose at the same time, causing the crowd to feel an invisible pressure. This? Looks like Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi didn't just obtain the hex runes. That's right. Their auras are much stronger than before. As expected of one of the top geniuses of the Imperial City. Truly amazing. Sensing the aura emanating from the two of them, everyone clearly understood that compared to Bai Yue, Long Xuanshuang, Lei Li and Yi Yao, the power of the illusionary spirit bell that Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi had obtained was even more shocking. Well done, Senior Martial Brother Wei. Congratulations, Senior Martial Brother Wei. Senior Apprentice Brother Shen is amazing. Congratulations on obtaining the Water Curse imprint. Amidst the warm applause from the crowd, the corners of Wei Qingfan's mouth curled into a cynical smile. He casually glanced at Shen Yunxi with a hint of disdain between his proud brows. Shen Yunxi was also a proud person. Towards Wei Qingfan's involuntary provocation, he directly responded with a look of indifference. While the two of them were exchanging pleasantries, they also discovered Luo Mingshang and Chu Hen, who had not yet woken up. Wei Qingfan frowned and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Then, the two of them walked down the stage and returned to their respective martial house teams. Congratulations, big brother. You're amazing. Xian hurriedly walked to Shen Yunxi's side and gently held his arm under the jealous gazes of many young girls around them. Shen Yunxi smiled and gently tapped Shen Xian's nose. It's nothing. Aya, don't be so modest. As Xian spoke, she glanced at the young figure on the stage, who was still in a state of perception. She then changed the topic and said, "A certain person who only knows how to put on an act is not even as good as your little fingernail." On the side of Tifeng Province, there was also a chorus of congratulations. Wei Qingfan was originally the monstrous genius with the highest cultivation and the best talent in the entire Tifeng Province team. After seeing the results just now, everyone was full of admiration for him. "Congratulations," Yi Yu said softly, and there was a hint of gentleness between her willowy eyebrows. Wei Qingfan responded with a gentle smile, and without hesitation, he gently slid his finger across her cheek. "Thank you." Yi Yu could not help but blush, and there was a hint of shyness in her eyes. "Did you light up all the runes on the giant bell?" "Yes, almost." Wei Qingfan raised his head slightly, and glanced at Shen Yunxi from the corner of his eyes. He said with a playful tone, "There are still 2 runes left." "There are only 2 runes left to complete?" Wei Qingfan's casual tone caused the surrounding people to suck in a breath of cold air and exclaim in surprise. "Genius! What a genius!" Especially those who had sensed the power of the phantom bell, they were especially aware of how difficult it was to light up those runes. Towards the end, they could only persevere by relying on their extremely firm willpower. However, Wei Qingfan only had 2 runes left to complete. This kind of result was really something that countless people looked up to. On the side, Yi Yao frowned slightly. There was an indescribable repulsion towards Wei Qingfan. She bit her small lip with her silver teeth, and her big eyes continued to look at Chu Hen on the stage in front of her. "Humph! Don't be too happy too early." The core instructor of the Imperial Martial Arts Academy, Hong Lian, sneered disdainfully. In an instant, only 2 people were left on the entire stage, Chu Hen and Luo Mengchang. Regarding this situation, everyone could not help but feel a little funny. One was the top of the high-ranked martial house in the capital, and the other was at the bottom from the beginning. In the eyes of the majority, Chu Hen seemed out of place, and even an indescribable eyesore. Until when is that guy going to sleep? Who knows? Looking at the golden bell phantom that he conjured, it doesn't seem to be much worse than Wei Qingfan and the others. That's funny. It looks about the same, but in reality there's a huge difference. I dare say that even if he is the last to wake up, at most he will get an ordinary rune. Compared to Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi, he is not qualified. Hee, it's just a joke, don't take it seriously. In fact, at this time, it was difficult for the people below the stage to judge who had lit up the most runes based on the degree of materialization of the golden bell phantom. They all looked the same, almost as if they were solid, and it was difficult to distinguish. Even so, in the eyes of the crowd, Chu Hen, Wei Qingfan, Shen Yunxi, and the others could not be compared at all. A dim space, a hazy world. The ancient giant bell standing in front of Chu Hen exuded a majestic aura like a mountain. If someone was standing next to it at this moment, they would be shocked by the scene in front of them. On the giant bell that soared into the sky, the dazzling runes were like silver flowing lights moving back and forth, flashing with a bright, glass-like luster. At the top of the giant bell, there were only 2 runes that had not been lit up. One of the runes was like a crescent moon, and the other was like a blazing sun. Buzz, buzz! A steady stream of power was being exported from Chu Hen's body and integrated into the giant bell, but this power seemed to have entered a bottomless pit, falling into a quagmire. Chu Hen had long felt physically and mentally exhausted, and an endless sense of weakness filled his whole body. "Can't I complete the remaining 2 runes?" Chu Hen gritted his teeth and tried hard to continue the operation and output of power. All kinds of exhaustion continued to magnify in his body, and Chu Hen only felt that he could lose consciousness at any time and fall to the ground powerlessly. "No, I haven't reached my limit yet. I can continue." Even though his arms and legs were beginning to tremble, Chu Hen did not plan to give up. Buzz, suddenly, the crescent moon rune at the top of the giant bell began to glow faintly. The faint white and silver light flickered like a firefly. Sacred demonic eye body. Chaotic body. Chu Hen gritted his teeth and used all his strength to mobilize the last bit of power that his two great bloodlines could provide. Buzz. A frenzied aura swept out in all directions. One purple and one black, two illusory beams of light lingered around Chu Hen's body and rapidly rotated. The biting cold wind caused this strange space to tremble. Chu Hen's aura was like a violent tide exploding. A huge amount of power poured out from Chu Hen's body, and his determined black eyes also turned demonic purple in an instant. The purple light and the black light quickly extended towards the top of the giant bell. With a zing sound, the crescent moon-shaped rune immediately blossomed with bright light. "There's only one more left," Chu Hen was both surprised and happy. He could clearly feel that there was boundless energy surging within the giant bell. However, at the same time, Chu Hen had already reached his limit. No matter if it was his mind or body, they were all exhausted and powerless. There was only one more left. Chu Hen used all his strength and held onto his last breath, pouring the last sliver of power he had into the bell. Boom! When the last sliver of power was used up, Chu Hen's consciousness quickly blurred. However, at the same time, the demonic purple light and the brutal black light quickly surged towards the remaining rune. Along with a vast vibration, all of the mysterious runes on the surface of the bell lit up, forming tens of millions of lightning bolt-like patterns that constantly intertwined and flickered. Clang! A heart-wrenching chime rang in Chu Hen's ears. It poured into the depths of his soul and plucked at his heartstrings. Chapter 142. Buzz. When Chu Hen used his last bit of strength to integrate all of his power into the ancient bell in front of him, endless fatigue and weakness immediately occupied Chu Hen's mind. His consciousness quickly fell into a blur, and he was about to wake up from the state of perception in the next second. However, it was also at this moment that the last mysterious rune on the top of the giant bell suddenly lit up. Along with a bell chime that seeped into one's soul and tugged at one's heartstrings, the runes and secret scrolls that covered the surface of the bell were like tens of thousands of lightning pillars, wantonly interweaving and flashing. A monstrous golden light bloomed from the top of the bell, and the majestic power was like a terrifying volcanic eruption. The hazy space where Chu Hen was in became violent and uneasy, and the wild power fluctuations were like a turbulent sea. At the moment when Chu Hen was about to fall, the golden light surged towards Chu Hen from all directions and directly drowned him. Dang! The melodious sound of the bell seemed to cross the mountains, rivers, and seas, passing through the turbulent world and into Chu Hen's ears. In the next moment, a particularly large and strange power gathered between Chu Hen's eyebrows. This was a power that was different from essential essence, but it was undeniably powerful. At this moment, Chu Hen's state was very strange. It was as if he was floating in midair, surrounded by a hazy mist. His consciousness was a little blurred and he felt a little dizzy. Chu Hen just quietly stayed like this, not wanting to move at all, feeling more comfortable. Buzz. After an unknown period of time, Chu Hen's consciousness began to become clear. However, at this moment, his divine sense had arrived in a dim palace. The surroundings were filled with boundless chaotic space, like a vast starry river. Then, something even more amazing happened. Countless golden light rays appeared between heaven and earth, and the dense golden light rays quickly gathered at the center with the momentum of 100 rivers flowing into the sea. This is... Chu Hen was particularly surprised to sense this scene, and there seemed to be some kind of surging strange power in his mind. Is this my Naiwan Palace? The Naiwan Palace was where one's spirit and soul resided. In the next moment, the endless golden light actually condensed into a bright spot of light. That spot of light was like a seed, wrapped in resplendent holy light. Soon after, the speck of light fell straight down, like a drop of water falling into the soil, instantly fusing with the darkness. This, before Chu Hen had time to be confused, something even more surprising happened in the next second. A streak of golden light drilled out from the dark ground. Upon closer inspection, that streak of light was actually a tiny sprout. An obscure energy fluctuation faintly appeared in this space. That sprout actually began to grow at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it had already grown 2 new leaves. They were 2 golden leaves that were filled with the aura of new life. Strands of golden luster lingered around the leaves, and on the 2 new leaves, there was a faint silver glow flowing. The silver glow intertwined with each other, and converged into the mysterious runes. Tao Seed. These 2 words involuntarily appeared in Chu Hen's mind. In the Naiwan Palace, the Tao Seed, feeling the power emitted from that sprout, which was different from spiritual ether, Chu Hen was both surprised and happy. In other words, that was Reiki energy. Now, he was a beginner rune master. The surprise came too suddenly. At the same time, Chu Hen was secretly happy. Fortunately, he had gritted his teeth and persevered. Rune Master, Reiki Energy Chu Hen was very clear about the high status of Rune Masters in the Sacred Star Dynasty. Buzz buzz. Just when Chu Hen was overjoyed, the tiny sprout lightly swayed its 2 new leaves. Along with a strange energy fluctuation, several sparkling and translucent, glass-like runes quietly rose up. At the same time, a huge amount of energy flowed into Chu Hen's body. Holy Bell Square. 5 giant towers exuded a majestic aura like a mountain. At the top of the main tower, the illusionary spirit bell blossomed with holy light that shrouded the central platform below. On the platform, Luo Mengchang and Chu Hen seemed to be bathed in holy light. The golden bell phantom that the 2 had conjured was no different from the real thing. This is really making me anxious. Why is it not over yet? Who knows? At this time, the emotions of the crowd below the platform began to become a little uneasy. The mentors and genius students of the major martial houses were more or less anxious. They wanted to turn around and leave, but they were also curious about what kind of power Luo Mengchang had obtained. In comparison, there were not many people who were concerned about Chu Hen. Dang! Suddenly, a loud and clear sound of a bell accompanied by a strong airflow swept out from the stage. Everyone's hearts trembled because the power of this bell sound surpassed everyone else's before. What? The mentors and students present, including the 2 top geniuses, Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi, all revealed solemn expressions. Imperial Martial Academy's core mentor Red Lotus eyes lit up, and a faint smile appeared in her beautiful eyes. It's junior sister Mengchang. She is finally going to wake up. I wonder what kind of power she has obtained? Under the different gazes of the audience, the golden bell phantom that Luo Mengchang had conjured was covered with fine cracks. Then, the golden bell phantom shattered into countless crystal fragments that floated above the platform. Countless fragments of light swirled around Luo Mengchang's body. They were light and elegant, like a meteor shower. Luo Mengchang's beautiful long hair danced with the airflow. It was a beautiful and ethereal scene. This scene was like a poem or a painting. Countless male students were a little dazed as they watched. Just as everyone was looking forward to what kind of curse runes Luo Mengchang had obtained, something strange happened. The golden light that filled the sky did not converge into any curse runes, but it did not dissipate and hide either. Instead, it fused into Luo Mengchang's delicate body from all directions. What's going on? Junior sister Mengchang didn't even get a single curse rune. That shouldn't be the case. The bell chime just now seemed to vibrate even more than senior brother Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi. There were all kinds of noises in the audience. If she really did not obtain a single curse rune, then wouldn't Luo Mengchang's result be worse than Yi Yao, Bai Yue, and the others? However, while everyone was discussing, they did not notice the shocked expressions on the faces of the people from Saint Bell City. Even the patriarch, Lei Shi, was holding on to his walking stick tightly with one hand. His wrinkled old face was clearly filled with amazement. This little girl is amazing. The powerful aura converged back into Luo Mengchang's body. She opened her beautiful eyes, which were clear and full of moving ripples. Only me and him are left? Luo Mengchang looked at Chu Hen, who had not yet woken up, with a slightly surprised expression. Then, she got up and returned to the audience. Junior sister Mengchang, what's going on? What power did you obtain? The students of the Imperial Martial Academy hurriedly surrounded them. Luo Mengchang's intelligent eyes were filled with a hint of mischief. She exchanged glances with instructor Hong Lian and smiled, before replying, "It's a secret." Secret? Looking at the other party's mysterious look, everyone could not help but feel confused. "TSK, what are you so proud of?" Xinwen from Lingxi Martial House glanced at the Imperial Martial Academy unhappily, then said frivolously, "If you didn't get a rune, then you didn't get one. Why are you pretending to be mysterious?" In her eyes, there was only one outstanding person, and that was her brother, Shen Yunxi. Let's go. There's nothing to see anymore," Shang Zhe said loudly without hesitation. "That's true." Renwei, Guosun, and the others from Tifeng province also agreed. "What happens next is purely a waste of time. There's no need to stay here any longer." There was a commotion in the audience. Now, only Chu Hen was left on the stage. However, in the eyes of many, there was no need to continue waiting. Everyone's expectations of Chu Hen were not high to begin with. Moreover, Shang Zhe, Guosen, and Renwei were fanning the flames and making all sorts of sarcastic remarks. Although the teachers and students from Tensei Prefecture were angry with the behavior of the crowd, there was nothing they could say. It was their choice to do what they wanted to do. No one had the right to interfere. Moreover, it was not the first time that the two of them from Tensei Prefecture were looked down upon. They were already used to this kind of situation. "Let's go," Wei Qingfan said to Yi Yu, who was next to him. There was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. There was a hint of cynicism and a hint of indifference. Yi Yu nodded and gently agreed. "Little Yao, let's go back." "Sister, wait a minute," Yi Yao hurriedly advised. Her gaze was filled with reluctance as she looked at the young figure on the platform who had yet to awaken. "There's nothing to wait for," Yi Yu replied indifferently with a hint of contempt in her tone. "I want to see what kind of curse runes big brother Chu Hen can obtain." "Haha, forget it. Junior sister Yi Yao," Ren Wei sneered disdainfully. "The reason why he hasn't woken up yet is because the speed at which he lit up the runes is too slow. Do you really think he's that capable? Don't talk about big brother Chu Hen like that." Yi Yao furrowed her brows and her face was filled with anger. Ren Wei did not take it seriously at all. "Humph, he's just a low-class person with good luck. Does he really have the ability to fly? Let's go. Many students from the higher martial houses turned around and prepared to leave the Holy Bell Square. However, in less than 5 seconds after everyone turned around, an enormous aura suddenly rose from the stage like a stormy sea. Clang! Immediately after, a deafening bell chime shook the surroundings, causing pain in the eardrums of countless people. The impact of the mighty sound waves caused the ground under his feet to tremble slightly. Everyone's complexion suddenly changed. One after another, they turned their heads to look. The golden holy radiance that enveloped the stage was actually rapidly revolving around Chu Hen's body. And the golden bell above his head was densely packed with cracks. Countless dazzling beams of light shot out from the crack. Chapter 143. What's going on? Along with the deafening sound of the bell, the people who were preparing to leave were all shaken to the point that their eardrums were buzzing. Everyone turned around and stared at the only young figure left on the stage. Shilan from the Tensei Prefecture trembled slightly. Her jade-like hands were clenched, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. This power is rumble. The illusionary spirit bell sprinkled down a golden holy radiance that enveloped the stage. The originally stable power, at this moment, unexpectedly became especially chaotic. The vast and mighty radiance, with Chu Hen as the center, continuously revolved. Countless cracks appeared on the golden bell phantom suspended in the air, and a dazzling light beam shot out from the crack. "What is that?" Looking at the light beam that shot out from the cracks on the Golden Bell Phantom, not only the geniuses of the martial houses, but also the mentors who led the teams were astonished. This feeling was like the scorching light of the morning sun. Gotcha! The cracks increased, and the huge power fluctuation caused the space on the platform to faintly tremble. Dong! At the same time that the illusory golden bell collapsed, another earth-shaking bell chime reverberated across the Holy Bell Square. However, what shocked everyone was that the incomparably loud bell chime did not originate from Chu-Hen, but from the sky above the 5 bell towers. Everyone's eyes immediately shifted to the top of the bell towers. The 5 main towers were covered with flashing runes, and their momentum was magnificent, like an ancient god. At the top of the main tower in the center, the illusionary spirit bell, the treasure of Holy Bell City, emitted a power fluctuation that was particularly unstable. The second terrifying bell chime just now originated from it. The world quietly changed color, and the wind and clouds surged. The mighty golden light surged like a raging tide, hovering above the 5 bell towers. In the void, there was a constant rumble of thunder. In an instant, the entire Holy Bell Square felt as if they were in the midst of a storm. The young figure on the platform was still sitting as steady as Mount Tai, and his handsome face was full of determination. "Patriarch Lei Shi, what's going on?" Yu Shan, a core instructor of the Mammoth Martial House, asked. However, Lei Shi did not reply. His eyebrows were tightly knitted together. His pair of old eyes were filled with seriousness as he stared at the illusionary spirit bell at the peak of the main tower. His withered old hand tightly gripped the walking stick in his hand, appearing extremely nervous. Gotcha! A clear and heavy cracking sound was transmitted to everyone's ears. In an instant, everyone's pupils involuntarily shrank. They saw that a deep crack had actually appeared on the illusionary spirit bell. "Oh my God!" The illusionary spirit bell cracked. What happened? The tribesmen of St. Bell City immediately fell into a panic. The fear on their faces made them feel like the sky was about to collapse. However, Lei Shi and the other elders did not panic too much. It was as if in their eyes, something like this would happen sooner or later. "Everyone, don't panic. It's just a matter of time." Lei Shi held his walking stick tightly in one hand and said helplessly, "Grandpa Patriarch, what's going on?" Everyone present looked at Lei Shi with puzzled eyes. The latter's eyes narrowed slightly as he shook his head and said in a deep voice, "Actually, when the illusionary spirit bell was in the hands of Patriarch Lei Huan, it was already a defective item." Defective? Everyone was stunned. The leading instructors of the various martial houses were also surprised. According to Patriarch Lei Huan, the body of the illusionary spirit bell has already been damaged. Even though he tried his best to repair it, it was only temporary. One day the body will still be destroyed. Lei Shi's old face was filled with complex emotions. His words were filled with regret. He really did not expect that this day would come so suddenly. Gotcha! During this period, cracks continuously appeared on the illusionary spirit bell. The deep and dark cracks were like the cracks of a dry riverbed. At this moment, no one cared about Chu-Hen who was on the stage. Everyone's attention was focused on the illusionary spirit bell. In the blink of an eye, the illusionary spirit bell, which was more than 10 meters tall and 5 meters wide, was full of cracks. The silver light patterns that were flowing on its surface had also become extremely unstable. Rumble! Agitated power vibrations surged up and spread out while the spirit bell buzzed. That restless power vibrations were like volcanoes that had been brewing underground magma. Boom! A violent explosion directly exploded above everyone's head. Everyone's mind trembled. The illusionary spirit bell, which was shining with silver light, forcibly exploded into thousands of pieces on the top of the main tower. A circle of vigorous golden airwaves spread out on the Holy Bell Square. The ferocious, surging power shook the square like a star exploding. The 5 clock towers kept shaking, and countless cracks appeared on the surface of the towers. Dust flew up and rocks flew everywhere. The crowd in the square could not stand steadily. The piercingly cold aura stirred up gusts of wind. "What is that?" a young student cried out in surprise. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Focusing their gazes, they saw a ball of golden light rapidly descending from the sky. Like a meteor falling from the sky, it flew towards Chu Hen's position on the Dao platform. Artifact Spirit. It's the artifact spirit of the illusionary spirit bell. An old man from St. Bell City said excitedly. Artifact spirit? The crowd burst into an uproar again. Shilan, Yushan, Li Gu, Hong Lian, and the other core instructors from the various martial houses were also shocked. There's an artifact spirit? That means this illusionary spirit bell is a spirit artifact. Moreover, only spirit artifacts that are ranked at the top of the spirit artifact ranking have artifact spirit. However, while the crowd was still in shock, a few old men from St. Bell City had already issued orders to the younger generation beside them. Quick, subdue the artifact spirit of the illusionary spirit bell. Before their voices faded, Lei Zhen, Lei Li, and the other young geniuses from St. Bell City had already dashed out like agile cheetahs toward the platform. Swoosh! With a leap, Lei Zhen jumped almost 10 meters into the air. He unleashed his powerful true origin energy that was close to core transformation stage Wu Xiu's and charged toward the artifact spirit of the illusionary spirit bell. However, right at this moment, a resplendent light erupted from the cluster of golden light. The light that was like a sea of smoke transformed into a surging shockwave that struck Lei Zhen's body. The latter's expression changed drastically, and being caught off guard, he was sent flying from midair. A mouthful of blood spurted out from Lei Zhen's mouth. Following that, Lei Li and the other geniuses from St. Bell City were pushed back by the powerful shockwave before they could even get close to the artifact spirit of the illusionary spirit bell. Seeing this, the instructors and disciples from the various martial houses were extremely shocked. The body of the bell had been destroyed, and only the artifact spirit was left. How could it still possess such powerful strength? In an instant, a burning desire appeared in the eyes of many genius disciples. Since all of you can't subdue the artifact spirit of the illusionary spirit bell, I'll do it for you. A young disciple with decent strength immediately flew up into the air. At the same time, Imperial Wind Wei Qingfan, Spirit Rhino Shin Yunxi, Heavenly Star by Yue Bianhong, and the others. Numerous genius students with extraordinary strength flashed out from their respective academies' teams, and all of them were like arrows that had left the bow as they swiftly charged up the platform. Buzz! Chapter 144. In an instant, the St. Bell Square was plunged into all sorts of chaos. The illusionary spirit bell's body suddenly split open, causing the genius students of the various martial houses to start fighting over the spirit. Previously, everyone knew that this illusionary spirit bell was not an ordinary item, but they did not expect it to contain a spirit. Even on the spiritual weapon ranking, only the top-ranked divine weapons would contain a spirit. Such a treasure would definitely cause people to break their heads and bleed for it in the outside world. Especially after seeing that Lei Zhen, Lei Li, and the other geniuses of the St. Bell City were unable to subdue the spirit of the illusionary spirit bell, even Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi were tempted. Swoosh! Many genius students with extraordinary strength rushed out from their respective academies' teams. Each of them moved swiftly and violently like arrows released from a bow as they charged towards the spirit. Buzz buzz! The spirit of the illusionary spirit bell had transformed into a golden ball of light. It was no more than half a meter tall, and the illusory silhouette of a golden bell appeared. An obscure yet powerful energy fluctuation was constantly being released from his body. The faces of the surrounding people all revealed a lot of fervent and longing. "I, Hu Gowen, will take this thing." The one who spoke was a young man wearing the badge of the Bright Moon Academy. A surging aura erupted from his body, showing that he had actually reached the 9th level of the element opening realm. Vigorous quintessential essence instantly erupted from his opponent's palm, and a huge suction force enveloped the Bell Spirit Light's silhouette. "Humph, you think you're qualified to touch this treasure?" An extremely contemptuous sneer followed. Emperor-style Wei Qingfan had already rushed in front of the other party. At the same time, Lingxi Shin Yunxi also arrived. "Put it down." Wei Qingfan raised his hand and raised his palm. A solid golden palm print separated from his palm and advanced forward with an unstoppable momentum. Shin Yunxi stretched out his right index and middle fingers, and a swift and fierce sword energy burst out like a shooting star. It tore through the air, leaving behind a transparent airwave. Two top geniuses attacked at the same time. The Bright Moon Academy genius called Hu Gowen's face instantly turned pale, and his contracted pupils were filled with panic. Boom! The extremely powerful attack landed solidly on the opponent's body. The strong airflow on the stage swept out in all directions, along with the violent turbulence of Zhen Yuan. The genius from the Bright Moon Academy felt as if he had been hit by a mountain, and was sent flying. He crashed heavily on the ground, spitting out blood and unable to get up. F***ck. Even a level 9 of the element opening realm can't handle it? On the Tensei Prefecture's side, the corner of Mu Feng's eyes, who was about to rush up to the Dao platform to fish in troubled waters, could not help but twitch twice. Then, he consciously retracted his footstep. When Li Huiyi, Zhou Lu, and the others saw this, they couldn't help but feel angry and amused. "Senior brother Mu Feng, you'd better stay here obediently. If you go up there, your legs will definitely be broken," Li Hui said. "Yes, that makes sense." Mu Feng nodded and then cursed. "Sigh, people's hearts are not what they used to be, they are simply a group of robbers. That old clan elder of St. Bell City is probably sick from anger." On the Dao platform, sparks flew everywhere. Multicolored true origin energies clashed together, and the Dao platform was about to be torn apart by the crowd. Some people were blasted down the moment they touched the Bell Spirit's phantom. Some people didn't even touch it before they were attacked by the crowd. There were also some who were slapped out of the arena for no apparent reason by some random person. It was a complete mess on the platform. Of course, the teachers had no intention of interfering with the students' ruckus. Everyone present was a core teacher, the most powerful instructors of each martial house. They all understood that no matter when, where there were people, there would be fights. And once a fight started, it all depended on one's own strength to stand firm. Fighting for the illusory Spirit Bell's artifact spirit could be regarded as a trial on the path of growth. They were all young and vigorous youths, so who cared what they did? The teachers didn't care, but the people from St. Bell City were all furious. You. An old man pointed at Imperial Martial Academy's core teacher, Red Lotus, and scolded, "This is too impudent. The illusory Spirit Bell belongs to our St. Bell City. Why aren't you telling them to stop?" However, Red Lotus didn't seem to care at all. Her eyelids twitched, and she replied indifferently, "Didn't your clan elder say clearly what kind of power you can obtain from the illusory Spirit Bell? Isn't this artifact spirit a part of the illusory Spirit Bell's power? Since this artifact spirit is also a part of the illusory Spirit Bell's power, isn't it reasonable for them to fight for it with their own strength?" Red Lotus's words sounded reasonable, and it was indeed the case. The old man was so angry that he couldn't retort. He could only look at clan elder Lei Shi. Lei Shi sighed helplessly. His shriveled lips trembled slightly, but in the end, he shook his head and chose to let them do what they wanted. No matter what, the illusory Spirit Bell's artifact spirit couldn't be kept. Even if the young disciples of the high-ranked martial houses in the capital city didn't fight for this artifact spirit today, this matter would definitely spread like wildfire in a few days. At that time, some people from all walks of life who wandered around the Heaven Lake mountain range would come to spy on them. This was another headache. From Lei Shi's point of view, the most important goal was to ensure the safety of Saint Bell City. Moreover, the illusory spirit Bell's body had been destroyed. Just the artifact spirit alone would definitely be far less powerful than before. The only thing that made Lei Shi feel regretful was that this item was left behind by the Lei Huan clan elder. It really made him feel a little sad. Mengshang, you don't plan to take the artifact spirit? Red Lotus asked Luo Mengshang, who was standing quietly beside her. Luo Mengshang shook her head slightly and replied softly, "No, I can't compete with them." "Is that so?" Red Lotus said in disbelief. Luo Mengshang smiled faintly. Her bright eyes flickered, but she didn't say anything. Boom! On the platform, the geniuses of the high-ranked martial houses were fighting fiercely. Slowly, everyone seemed to be really angry. They didn't care about the purpose of coming up here. They all looked for their own opponents and fought fiercely. You want to get your hands on this item? Get out of my way." Wei Qingfan sent a young genius student flying with a palm strike. His powerful aura shocked everyone present. Dragon capturing hand. With a loud shout, Wei Qingfan placed his left hand on his right arm. Then, he flipped his right hand from the inside to the outside and quickly reached out with a single hand. A huge golden hand that was several meters wide suddenly transformed into existence. Under Wei Qingfan's control, the golden hand swept in all directions and grabbed at the illusory golden bell suspended in midair. What a shocking aura! Everyone's expression changed. As expected of Wei Qingfan, such a powerful aura almost suppressed everyone. However, just as the golden hand was about to touch the bell spirit phantom, a beautiful and solid plum blossom shot out with a spinning momentum. As it moved rapidly, the plum blossom turned into a sharp sword shadow at an extremely fast speed. The sharp glint tore through the air and pierced everyone's eardrums. Swoosh! The plum blossom transformed into a sword shadow that sliced through the golden hand's wrist. The unstoppable sword qi was like a sharp blade piercing through tofu. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd below, Shen Yunxi's strike directly cut through the golden hand that Wei Qingfan had conjured. "Hey, young Master Wei, don't forget about me." Shen Yunxi's sword aura was sharp. Rays of sword qi lingered around his body, and his powerful aura wasn't any weaker than Wei Qingfan's. Wei Qingfan sneered. His brows were filled with arrogance and disdain. "Plum Blossom Sword Shen Yunxi, I've heard a lot about you. How can a mere lowly name compare to young Master Wei? Since you know that your name is lowly, then leave." Boom! Surging true origin energy erupted from Wei Qingfan's body like a raging waterfall. It swept up the majestic pressure of a mountain as it attacked Shen Yunxi. Shen Yunxi didn't show any weakness. Sword qi condensed in his palm, and it was extremely sharp. Seeing the two top geniuses, Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi, fighting each other, everyone below the stage revealed pleasant surprise in their eyes. This kind of battle wasn't something that could be seen casually. As the two of them fought, the geniuses of the Spirit Rhino Martial House and Tifeng Province couldn't help but fight each other. Guosen, watch my sword." The arrogant Shang Zhe stabbed at Guosen with his sword that blossomed with a dazzling light. Truthfully speaking, Guosen was stronger than his opponent. Under normal circumstances, Shang Zhe wouldn't be Guosen's opponent. But just 2 days ago, Guosen's palm had been pierced by Chu Hen's Demon Punisher spear in a battle with Chu Hen. Under a situation where his right hand had yet to recover, Shang Zhe was still able to deal with Guosenior whoosh. As Guosen dodged his opponent's attack, he suddenly said in a low voice, there's no meaning in us fighting. Look over there." "Over there?" The corner of Shang Zhe's eyes narrowed, and he looked towards the direction that the other party was pointing at. On the other side of the Dao platform, there was a young figure still sitting there as if there was no one around. His eyes were closed, and he was like a boulder. Shang Zhe's face couldn't help but be covered in frost. "Bastard brat. You're actually still dreaming at such a time," Hee, do you think there'll be anyone who will investigate if it's an accidental injury? Guo Sin smiled slyly. Accidental injury? Shang Zhe was first startled, before his eyes lit up, and a sinister look flashed in his eyes. You understand now? Guo Sin smiled even more complacently. Humph! Shang Zhe sneered, and once again raised his sword and chopped at Senior Guo Sin. Lie down. Compared to the previous attack, Shang Zhe's attack was clearly slower. Guo Sin understood, and stretched out his left arm to easily grab his opponent's wrist. The genius of the Spirit Rhino Martial House is only SOSO. Bang! Guo Sin pushed out his hand and slapped Shang Zhe's arm. The treasured sword in Shang Zhe's hand instantly flew out, and the place that the treasured sword flew towards was not somewhere else. Impressively, it was where Chu Hen was. Swish! The gleaming sword was like a flowing light that could trace back thousands of years, exuding endless danger and murderous intent. Big brother Chu Hen, watch out! Yi Yao's panicked voice suddenly rang out from below the stage. In that instant, everyone's eyes turned towards Chu Hen, and their pupils involuntarily shrank. The sharp sword had already arrived in front of Chu Hen. What was going on? Xilan, Zuemo, Mu Feng and the other teachers from Tensei Prefecture were all shocked. Long Qingyang, Long Xuanshuang and the rest were equally shocked. Guo Sin and Shang Zhe already had a smug smile on their faces, and the scene of Chu Hen being pierced through the chest appeared in their minds. However, just as the sword was less than 10 centimeters away from its target, Chu Hen suddenly opened his eyes, and 2 dazzling rays of light burst out. He instantly raised his right hand, forming a palm blade with one hand, and accurately chopped down on the body of the sword. Ding! The crisp sound was both pleasant and ear-piercing. The treasured sword was broken into 2 pieces at the sound. Then, a cold and ruthless aura rose from Chu Hen's body like frost, and his lips curled up as he spoke in an indifferent voice. Chapter 145. Ding! Just as Guo Sin and Shang Zhe were feeling proud of their plan, the sharp sword that was supposed to pierce into Chu Hen's chest broke into 2 and fell to the ground. In an instant, the entire place fell silent. Do you really think I'm asleep? A cold and ruthless aura spread out from Chu Hen's body. He slowly stood up from the stage, and an aura as strong as a mountain flowed out of his body. Everyone in the audience was shocked. Especially Xilan, Zuemo, Mu Feng, Zhou Lu, and the other teachers and students from Tensei Prefecture. They could clearly feel that the aura emanating from Chu Hen was several levels stronger than before. What was even more shocking was the cold aura on his body. It was as cold as a sharp knife. I told you he should have woken up long ago, Luo Mengchang of Imperial Martial Academy murmured. Previously, when the illusionary spirit clock cracked, Chu Hen had already woken up. However, there were 2 reasons why he didn't get up. One was to calm the chaotic newborn energy in his body. The other was to find a suitable time to seize the bell spirit. However, Chu Hen didn't expect that Guo Sin and Shang Zhe would be so shameless as to use the chaotic scene as a cover to attack him. Under such circumstances, if they insisted that it was an accident, Chu Hen could only blame it on his bad luck. After all, everyone was fighting on the stage, and he was still asleep. Who could he blame if he was accidentally injured? Of course, this was just Shang Zhe and Guo Sin's smart idea. Endless ruthless energy spread out from Chu Hen's body. He slightly raised his right hand with his palm facing up, and his fingers pointed at Shang Zhe and Guo Sin in an extremely provocative manner. Come on. 2 pieces of trash, I'm right here. If you can kill me, then you have the ability. The word trash was as cold as a knife and exceptionally harsh to the ears. At this moment, Shang Zhe and Guo Sin were humiliated by Chu Hen in front of countless people. It was impossible for anyone to remain indifferent. Guo Sin and Shang Zhe clenched their teeth. They exchanged glances with each other and saw the killing intent and fury in each other's eyes. You said it yourself. Guo Sin was furious. He didn't believe that he and Shang Zhe couldn't handle Chu Hen. You can get your ass over here, Chu Hen said coldly. Courting death. Shang Zhe let out a furious roar, raising a piercingly cold gale as he charged towards Chu Hen. Sharp silver sword chi coiled around his arms like spirit snakes, and his hands turned into palm blades as he slashed straight towards Chu Hen's throat. Die! Full of loopholes. A sneer appeared at the corner of Chu Hen's mouth. With a change of footwork, he easily dodged his opponent's palm blade. Without waiting for Shang Zhe to change his attack, Chu Hen raised his hand at lightning speed and grabbed his opponent's right wrist. Then, he exerted strength in his arm and pulled Shang Zhe down. Shang Zhe only felt that the strength in Chu Hen's palm exceeded 10,000 kilograms. His opponent lost his balance and fell forward. When Shang Zhe's body fell forward, his head also fell down. In the next instant, Chu Hen directly raised his right leg and firmly kneed Shang Zhe's face. Bang! A circle of scattered true origin energy rose up, and a muffled explosion reverberated on the stage. The pupils of everyone present rapidly shrank. They saw Shang Zhe let out a muffled groan, and then his entire body was sent flying. Scarlet blood continuously spurted from his mouth and nose. Blood splattered everywhere, and he was in a daze. Not far away, Xin1, who stood with Lin Hai, could not help but cover her mouth with her trembling hands. She could not bear to look at Shang Zhe's fate. Ruthless, really ruthless. Simple and violent. Hitting people in the face, stepping on people in the head. Although Chu Hen's strike seemed simple, the force of impact was especially shocking. At the same time that Shang Zhe was sent flying, Guo Sun, who was following closely behind, suddenly arrived in front of Chu Hen. The greenish-gray evil water emitted a thick and dangerous aura. His evil water battle body was a kind of mutated bloodline boundary, and it possessed an extremely strong poison. The surging palm energy directly hit Chu Hen's face. Stinking brat, lie down for me. Guo Sen's face revealed a ferocious expression. Bang! He had originally thought that he would definitely kill Chu Hen with his palm, but he had actually forcefully hit the air. The violent true origin energy caused the air flow on the stage to set off a heavy explosion. Just a second ago, Guo Sun only saw a black shadow flash in front of him, and Chu Hen had strangely disappeared from the spot. Guo Sun, behind you! Ren Wei, who was on the other side, shouted in a stern voice. What? Guo Sen's heart jumped, and he only felt a cold and dangerous aura coming from behind him. However, without waiting for him to react, Chu Hen lifted his leg and kicked the joint of Guo Sen's back knee. A loud bang, along with Guo Sen's miserable howl, caused the hearts of everyone present to tremble. Guo Sun directly knelt on the stage, and when his knees touched the ground, the floor tiles shattered. At the same time, the bones in Guo Sen's knees were also shattered. The howl that sounded like a pig being slaughtered caused the scalps of countless people in the audience to go numb. Looking at Guo Sun, whose knees had been shattered, kneeling on the stage, everyone's eyes were filled with deep disbelief. Oh my God! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Guo Sun had the powerful strength of the 6th level of the element opening stage. Just a few days ago, if Chu Hen wanted to defeat his opponent, he would need to expend a lot of effort. But now it was simply an instant kill. This kind of difference was really a little too big. What was even more shocking was Chu Hen's methods. He clearly looked like a handsome and gentle youth, but once he became ruthless, even many of the martial house instructors present were shocked. Bastard! Ren Wei, who was not far away, was shocked and angry at the same time. Endless killing intent flashed in his eyes, and he immediately took out the fallen spirit talisman for self-defense without hesitation. An extremely violent energy was released from the palm of his hand. A frivolous sneer appeared on Chu Hen's face. Before Ren Wei could activate the fallen spirit talisman to launch a sure-kill attack, the temperature on the stage suddenly dropped to freezing point. A domineering cold energy rose from Chu Hen's body, and a thick layer of frost immediately formed on the stage between the two. Not only did Ren Wei's movements become sluggish, even the circulation of his true yuan also slowed down. This situation was extremely dangerous for Ren Wei. Great waterfall! Mountain-crushing palm! Ren Wei's pupils violently shrank, and the hearts of the audience trembled. Bang! A terrifying force like a mountain attacked Ren Wei's body. A powerful shockwave rippled out like a ripple on the surface of water, along with an incomparably fierce gust of wind. The sand and stones on the ground were swept up, causing pain to the faces of the onlookers. Under countless shocked gazes, Ren Wei directly drew a parabola in the air, and then heavily landed on the ground. Bang! Dust flew into the air. Ren Wei continuously dragged a 10-meter-long trail on the ground before he was able to stop. His body was covered in blood, and his chest had caved in. His sternum was broken, and his internal organs were displaced. He lay half dead on the ground, unable to even get up. Silence, a deathly silence. He had defeated 3 geniuses in a row, 2 of which had reached the 6th level of the element opening realm, and all of them were defeated in an instant. The audience was shocked, and countless people looked at Chu Hen as if they were looking at a monster. Was this really a new recruit this year? That was way too perverted. This was simply brutal. Li Gu, the teacher in charge of the Tifeng province, could be said to have mixed feelings. At this moment, he did not feel embarrassed because of Guo Sen and Ren Wei's consecutive setback. He only felt regret for not being able to bring Chu Hen into the Tifeng province. However, it was a little too late to regret now. Big brother Chu Hen is really amazing. Yi Yao clasped her hands together, and her intelligent big eyes were full of light. From the beginning to the end, from Shaozong College in Raging Rain City until now, Yi Yao's admiration for Chu Hen had never diminished. This feeling was exactly the same as before. However, the difference was that Yi Yu, who stood beside Yi Yao, would not stand on Chu Hen's side like before. At this moment, only a cold frost could be seen on her face. Haha, well fought. Beat him to death. Mu Feng was eager to see the world in chaos. However, for the people in the Tensei prefecture, it could be said that they had gained a lot of face, and they were secretly delighted. Previously, no matter where they went, the Heavenly Star Martial House was not spared from people rolling their eyes at them. Now, with the identity of a new student, Chu Hen was able to hang up and beat the old student geniuses of the Spirit Rhino Martial House and the Emperor Wind Martial House. This was absolutely venting the resentment of the entire academy. Teacher Shilan's beautiful eyes rippled slightly, and a faint thought appeared in between her gentle brows. Even the people in the St. Bell City were dumbfounded. In the past, they had heard people say that the Tensei prefecture was the worst school in the capital. However, it seemed that things were not as the rumors said. If a new student could be so fierce, one could only imagine how strong the teaching ability of the school was. This kid. Long Qingyang's heart was finally at ease, and a helpless smile appeared on his face. Why didn't he realize that this little brother of his was so scary when he was young? Although there was no change in Long Xuanxuang's expression, there was still a trace of worry in her eyes that had yet to fade. The confrontation on the platform had come to a standstill. Chu Hen's dark eyes darkened, and a powerful force surged out of his body once again. Buzz! Buzz! Everyone was stunned once again. They saw the spirit of the illusory spirit bell floating in midair emit a gentle light, and a joyful energy wave was released. Following that, something that surprised countless people happened. The illusory golden clock's weapon spirit swept across the void and flew straight towards Chu Hen's location. What's going on? What's going on? Chapter 146. Buzz, buzz. When Chu Hen used an absolutely brutal method to torture Shang Zhe, Guo Sen, and Ren Wei until there was not a single piece of unscathed skin on their bodies, an especially powerful aura once again rose from Chu Hen's body. Then, something astonishing happened. the artifact spirit of the illusionary spirit bell that was floating in the air suddenly became abnormally active, releasing a brilliant light that was as bright as the sun. Whoosh! In the next instant, under the countless shocked gazes of the audience, the illusory image of the golden bell traversed through the air. Dragging a long shadow behind it, it headed straight towards Chu Hen's location. This scene was like the spirit bell had received some kind of summon, and it was consciously getting close to Chu Hen. What's going on? Everyone present was puzzled, and even the mentors of the various martial houses were puzzled. Lei Shi, the clan leader of St. Bell City, could not help but tremble, and he subconsciously blurted out, "The spirit bell has chosen its own master." As soon as this was said, the entire audience was in an uproar. Everyone really could not understand why the illusionary spirit bell would choose to get close to Chu Hen. Was there something on the other party that attracted it? However, at this moment the other two top geniuses on the stage, Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi, suddenly made their move. Regardless of whether they had a private grudge against Chu Hen, with their qualifications and fame, they absolutely could not allow Chu Hen to take away the illusionary spirit bell from under their noses. Since the spirit bell doesn't belong to me, don't even think about getting it. Shen Yunxi's eyes turned cold, and two sharp sword-like beams of light burst out. The surging sword qi lingered around his body like ripples, emitting a powerful aura that made people's hearts palpitate. Shen Yunxi raised his right palm, and a steady stream of sword qi quickly gathered in his right arm. In an instant, Shen Yunxi's right hand flashed with a silver light, as if it had been soaked in the holy light of the bright moon, and it was extremely cold. Triple pulse sword. Along with Shen Yunxi's cry, 3 silver shadows immediately flew out from his palm. The cold and sharp aura was unusually strong. As they moved, the 3 silver shadows quickly became sharp and piercingly cold, instantly turning into 3 solid sword qis. The target of the sword qi was the artifact spirit of the illusionary spirit bell. Everyone's expression changed. Shen Yunxi actually wanted to destroy the artifact spirit. At the same time, a powerful torrent-like aura erupted from Wei Qingfan. Surging true essence was like a torrent that had broken through a dam, and it completely condensed in his palm. The violent energy fluctuations were like golden holy flames covering his arms, and a circle of invisible air waves rose up on the stage. Wei Qingfan stretched out his right hand, and a powerful aura caused the space to tremble faintly. Dragon seizing hand. Accompanied by the sound of rolling thunder, a large golden hand that was magnified several times separated from Wei Qingfan's right palm. Compared to Wei Qingfan's previous move, the deterrent power this time was more than 10 times stronger. The large golden hand shone like a crystal, and it was extremely powerful. However, Wei Qingfan's target was not the artifact spirit of the illusionary spirit bell, but Chu Hen himself. Oh no! Instructor Zhuomo's expression changed drastically from Tensei Prefecture's side. Mu Feng, Li Hui, Zhou Lu, and a few other good friends of Chu Hen were also shocked. There was no way Chu Hen could survive this move. Wei Qingfan, you bastard! Long Qingyang was also furious. He never thought that Wei Qingfan would attack Chu Hen under such circumstances. However, anger was of no use. Even Instructor Shilan from Tensei Prefecture could not save him in time. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, something unexpected happened in an instant. The faces of Yi Yao, Long Xuanshuang, and the rest turned pale. On the stage, the artifact spirit of the illusionary spirit bell had already flown in front of Chu Hen, but Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi's ferocious attacks followed closely behind. Sensing the 2 destructive attacks coming at him, he was almost at his wits' end. Both of them were top-notch monstrous geniuses with cultivations above the core transformation stage. Even if Chu Hen's talent was higher and his bloodline was stronger, it was impossible for him to block the attacks of both of them with his cultivation of the 6th level of the element opening stage. A faint look of pity flashed across Chu Hen's eyes. With a flash of his body, a strange energy wave was quietly released. Boom! In the next instant, the three meteor-like sword shadows exploded with a powerful destructive power, while the giant golden hand also set off an unstoppable shockwave. Along with a violent energy wave that shook the heavens, the powerful attacks of the two top-notch monstrous geniuses all hit the area where Chu Hen was. The ground of the entire Holy Bell Square shook. The magnificent power of True Yuan was like a hot knife through butter, and the violent force was comparable to a mountain crashing down. A powerful shockwave swept across the entire square with the force of 1,000 caddies. Rubble and dirt flew into the air, and the crisscrossing cracks on the ground spread in all directions like a spider web, extending for dozens of meters. Hiss! What a terrifying destructive power! Everyone in the audience gasped, and their brows were tightly knitted together. Imperial Martial Academy's Luo Mengshang slightly frowned. She did not know why, but she was a little worried about the young figure on the stage. Of course, this concern was purely because Chu Hen had helped her before. Brother Chu Hen. Yi Yao gripped the corner of her clothes tightly with both hands and bit her lips. She was extremely worried. The shock wave produced by the fusion of the two forces was enough to kill any Wu Xiao in the natal opening realm. Previously, in the eyes of countless people, Chu Hen was definitely going to die. However, to everyone's surprise, the young figure was still in the circle of violent forces, and his slender figure was as straight as a spear. Then, there was another loud bang. The space trembled, and the airwaves trembled. The ball of golden light in front of Chu Hen suddenly shattered, exploding into countless crystal fragments that scattered wantonly in the air. This is? Everyone's expression changed again, and they immediately understood what was going on. Chu Hen had used the artifact spirit of the illusionary spirit bell as a shield to block the golden light shadow from the two destructive forces. As expected, the illusionary spirit bell's artifact spirit was nowhere to be seen on the stage, and Chu Hen was still standing there unscathed. In this way, not only had the illusionary spirit bell been destroyed, but its artifact spirit had also been destroyed. The audience shook their heads helplessly and lamented, but most of them were gloating. The people of St. Bell City had mixed feelings. Originally, it was just a transaction between the martial houses and the martial houses. They had not expected things to go out of control again and again. Now, the entire illusionary spirit bell had been destroyed. Of course, Chu Hen had done that purely because he had no other choice. Chu Hen's life was spared. Long Qingyang, Long Xuanxuang, Yi Yao, and all the teachers and students from Tensei Prefecture breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that he was fine. This guy, he scared me to death. Mu Feng rubbed his chest with a slightly panicked look on his face. Sigh, it's a pity that the illusionary spirit bell's artifact spirit was destroyed just like that. Li Hui sighed. It's fine as long as he's fine. Zhou Lu added, but those two bastards are really ruthless to do such a shameless thing. Teacher Zuemo shook his head, sighing that they were still too young. In the eyes of ordinary people, Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi's actions were a little inappropriate, but in the eyes of the teachers, not only were their methods not wrong, they were actually very correct. After all, in this situation, Chu Hen was standing on the stage as their opponent. Since they were opponents, they had to do their best to defeat the other party or weaken the other party's strength. There was no doubt that if Chu Hen had obtained the illusionary spirit bell's artifact spirit, it would definitely be of great help to him in the future. In this case, choosing to destroy the artifact spirit was a good strategy to lose both sides. Although he did not obtain the treasure himself, making his opponent's cooked duck fly away from his mouth was also a tactic. However, while the audience was admiring Shen Yunxi and Wei Qingfan's actions and lamenting over the destruction of the illusionary spirit bell's artifact spirit, no one noticed that there was a faint glow floating around Chu Hen. That wisp of obscure luster was like a wisp of faint water ripples and mist. It quietly merged into Chu Hen's body. This scene was extremely obscure, so much so that even Chu Hen himself did not notice it. A biting cold wind suddenly swept out from the surface of the stage, lifting up a corner of Chu Hen's clothes. He stood where he was, and his gaze was filled with endless coldness. Although the illusionary spirit bell's artifact spirit had blocked the two terrifying destructive forces just now, Chu Hen was not unscathed. His clothes were a lot messy, and there was a small wound on his handsome face from the aftermath of the collision of forces. Immediately afterward, a cold aura uncontrollably spread out from Chu Hen's body, and the young man's firm outline became unusually fierce. The expressions of the people below the stage changed. What was this guy trying to do? Phew! Chu Hen's eyelids lifted, and his eyes surged with endless coldness as he shot straight at Wei Qingfan, who was in front of him. This was anger that came from his bones. Shen Yunxi's action of destroying the illusionary spirit bell made Chu Hen angry, but compared to Wei Qingfan, it was not worth mentioning. The one Wei Qingfan wanted to destroy was Chu Hen. He wanted to take his own life. Rage, absolute rage. This had already reached an unbearable point for Chu Hen. Brother Chu Hen. Seeing this, Yi Yao below the stage was worried. Yi Yu was the opposite. A disdainful sneer appeared on her face, and she said in her heart, "You are asking to be humiliated by going against Wei Qingfan." Facing Chu Hen's angry and cold gaze, Wei Qingfan had a face of indifference and disdain. Raising both of his arms, he shrugged his shoulders and said, "I'm sorry, I accidentally destroyed the item in your hands." His disdainful voice was full of joy and contentment. Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, a metal vibration sounded, and the demon Punisher's spear suddenly appeared in Chu Hen's hand. He raised the tip of the spear, and the sharp blade was flashing, pointing at Wei Qingfan in front of him. Chapter 147. Little Dog Wei, I'm going to skin you alive today. Accompanied by a burst of heavy metallic vibrations, a cold spear with black patterns on it astonishingly appeared in Chu Hen's hand. The tip of the spear was high up, and it flickered with a sharp light. The sharp tip of the spear was pointed at Wei Qingfan in front of him. Chu Hen's words were like needles, piercing the eardrums of everyone present. The aura that was released from his body was as cold as a sharp knife, emitting a bone-chilling coldness. However, after a short moment of shock, the crowd below the stage burst into an uproar. The chaos was filled with all kinds of contemptuous sneers. It was said by a sixth-stage origin opening realm martial artist to a core transformation realm martial artist. What a joke, what a joke! Arrogant, ignorant arrogance. Too ignorant. Did this guy become stupid from anger? A student from Tifeng province mocked disdainfully. Really stupid. He actually dared to provoke senior brother Wei Qingfan. He really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Wei Qingfan can kill him with one finger. Senior brother Wei, kill him. Let him know how ridiculous he is now. Not only did the students of the Emperor Wind Martial House feel that Chu Hen's actions were stupid beyond measure, even the genius students of the other high-ranked martial houses felt that Chu Hen had gone mad from anger. In his rage, he did such an extremely irrational action. Interesting. Imperial Martial Academy's core instructor, Red Lotus, chuckled lightly. "Instructor, don't you think he's very bold?" Luo Mengchong suddenly said. "Bold?" Red Lotus's eyes flashed with a hint of frivolity. "He's quite stupid. This kind of person dies early." As Red Lotus spoke, the scene from before appeared in her mind. In the Wu Hen illusory array, Chu Hen almost disregarded his own life and stood in front of Shilan. If it wasn't for Red Lotus's carelessness, Chu Hen would not have survived until now. At this thought, Red Lotus subconsciously glanced at Tensei Prefecture. The purple-haired beauty stood quietly on the spot. There wasn't much worry on her elegant and refined face. On the contrary, the other people in Tensei Prefecture were at a loss of what to do. Chu Hen is too mischievous. He can't control his temper. How could he be a match for Wei Qingfan? Zhou Lu was anxious and angry. Is that guy really that formidable? Mu Feng pointed at Wei Qingfan on the stage. Zhou Lu nodded without hesitation. Few people in the capital dare to provoke Wei Qingfan. Chu Hen is too reckless this time. Mentor Shilan, Mentor Zuemo, hurry up and stop him. Zuemo frowned and turned to look at Shilan. However, Shilan was indifferent. Her red lips moved slightly and she replied calmly, I want to see his true strength. True strength? Everyone was stunned and shook their heads in their hearts. Even Mentor Shilan was starting to act recklessly. A cold gust of wind swept across the stage. The other genius students on the stage consciously retreated far away or returned to the bottom of the stage. Plum Blossom Sword Shin Yunshi watched this scene with interest. A faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth as he followed the others to the side of the stage. In an instant, Chu Hen and Wei Qingfan were like two clock towers facing each other. The air was filled with anxiety. The battle was about to begin. The mentors from Di Feng and Tian Xing did not stop them. Clan leader Lei Shi of St. Bell City also did not say anything. This meant that everyone present had tacitly agreed to this battle. A level 6 elemental opening stage versus a core transformation stage. This was a confrontation without any suspense. Even so, Chu Hen's aura was no weaker than anyone else's. Hee. Wei Qingfan's face revealed a thick, mocking smile. There was clearly a lot of disdain in his eyes. Are you in such a hurry to die? Humph, isn't this exactly what you want? 1. Before he finished speaking, a thick black light was released from Chu Hen's body. It was like the black light of the 9 underworld flames rapidly climbed up the demon slayer spear. The piercingly cold aura shocked everyone present. Anyone could see that Chu Hen was not just saying it. Wei Qingfan laughed again. His laughter was filled with contempt. Then, his tone changed and his eyes turned cold. A vast and mighty killing intent burst out like a spring river. Ha 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 ha, since you are in such a hurry, how can I not fulfill your wish? 1. As soon as he finished speaking, a strong surging golden light rose from Wei Qingfan's body. The dazzling light was like a bright sun. His body moved, leaving an afterimage on the spot, and he flew towards Chu Hen like an arrow leaving the bow. Just you wait, I'll let you know just how stupid your actions were. The powerful pressure of a core transformation stage expert was like a mountain. The piercingly cold wind caused many people around to take a few steps back. This aura. TSK. Chu Hen really kicked an iron plate. He asked for it. Who can he blame? While everyone was exclaiming in surprise, Chu Hen had already made his move. Facing the menacing Wei Qingfan, Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. The demon slayer spear that was swallowing and spitting out black light tore through the air and thrust forward. Bang! A heavy vibration pierced through the ears like a thunderstorm. Wei Qingfan's right palm actually directly collided with the tip of the demon punisher spear. A mass of scattered true essence exploded in midair, but the black light on the demon punisher spear was shaken back several times. Chu Hen's palm unconsciously became numb, and his feet continuously retreated. In their first confrontation, Chu Hen lived up to everyone's expectations and fell into a disadvantageous position. The sneers on the faces of the people below the stage became even more obvious. Is this all you've got? Wei Qingfan laughed coldly. Don't be happy too early. Chu Hen stomped the ground with one foot, and a cold ice profound cold chi spread out from his body. It continuously condensed into ice on the ground and attacked Wei Qingfan. Subsequently, Chu Hen formed a seal with one hand, and the cold ice profound cold chi rose like a shocking wave. In an instant, an ice curtain was formed between the two of them. The ice curtain was more than 5 meters tall, and it blocked between Chu Hen and Wei Qingfan like an ice shield. Long Xuan, who was in the Bright Moon Academy's area, had a ripple in her beautiful eyes, and a trace of astonishment appeared in them. Chu Hen could actually control the power of ice. Previously, Long Xuan had an ice martial body, and later, it evolved into an ice soul battle body bloodline boundary. With her understanding of the power of ice, She could naturally see that the power Chu Hen displayed did not originate from the power of the bloodline boundary. In that case, he could only use martial arts to change the attribute of his true origin energy. But compared to the attribute of true origin energy changed by martial arts, the ice-profound cold chi that Chu Hen controlled was much more domineering. Long Xuan could not see through this younger brother of hers, who was not related by blood, more and more. The little guy who followed behind her every day when they were young had now grown to such an extent. She could not help but sigh. Crackle! The speed at which the ice curtain condensed was extremely fast, and the cold air that it emitted was unusually cold. Insignificant skill. Wei Qingfan sneered disdainfully. A lively golden light lingered on his arm, and he clenched one of his hands into a fist and directly punched the ice curtain in front of him. Bang! The deafening aura caused the entire stage to tremble. A surging shockwave swept out like a stormy sea. That dazzling golden glow blossomed like firework. The ice curtain that was erected in front of the two of them was shattered by Wei Qingfan's punch. The chilly air waves spread in all directions, and the ice crystal fragments fluttered in the air. Whoosh! In the next second, a sharp cold spear directly pierced through the messy flying ice crystal fragments, and directly pierced towards Wei Qingfan's throat. This spear's power was terrifying, and its attack was like lightning. Many people below the arena felt their hearts in their throat. It had to be said that Chu Hen's move, Flower in the Fog, was practical and beautiful. However, Wei Qingfan was not an ordinary person. With his core transformation stage cultivation base, how could he not defend against this move? I'll let you see how big the gap between us is. Before his voice faded, Wei Qingfan directly used his left hand to block his throat, and the lively golden light quickly condensed into a small vortex of true energy in his palm. Bang! A muffled sound rang out, and the tip of the demon punishing spear once again landed on Wei Qingfan's palm. The scattered golden light dispersed like water ripples, and Chu Hen's attack seemed to have collided with an iron plate, and it was difficult for it to penetrate any further. Hua! The entire arena was in an uproar. Wei Qingfan is Wei Qingfan, and he is not someone that can be offended by any Tom, Dick, or Harry. The gap between their realms is too big, and the strength of their true energy is on a completely different level. There is no way for him to fight. Senior Brother Wei, don't waste time and quickly end it. The various voices below the arena were basically praising Wei Qingfan and belittling Chu Hen. This kind of contest on a completely different level was indeed not suspenseful. At least, this was what the majority of people thought. In the Tifeng province region, looking at Chu Hen, who was repeatedly thwarted by Wei Qingfan, Yi Yu's face revealed a somewhat cold smile. You brought this upon yourself. Buzz buzz. The black light on the demon-punishing spear continuously collided with the golden light in Wei Qingfan's palm. Just when everyone thought that Chu Hen could not even break through his opponent's defense, something unexpected happened. Hua! The black flames surged out of Chu Hen's body like a tidal wave, and quickly climbed up the body of the demon-punishing spear. Chu Hen's true energy instantly became extremely tyrannical, and its strength increased by several times. What? Wei Qingfan's expression changed slightly. I said not to be happy too early, young Master Wei. Bang! The sharp spear light blossomed with a manic killing intent, and the power that originated from the tip of the spear increased by several times. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, the golden energy vortex in Wei Qingfan's palm exploded. Bang! Chapter 148. Bang! A frenzied aura surged like raging waves. The power that originated from the demon Punisher's spear was comparable to surging wave. Under the astonished gazes of the audience, the golden true origin whirlpool condensed in Wei Qingfan's palm instantly shattered. The cold spear in Chu Hen's palm pierced downwards. Accompanied by a heavy explosion, Wei Qingfan was actually forced to take 2 steps back. At the same time, a wisp of faint red blood sprinkled from his right palm. What? The appearance of this scene directly caused the expressions of the audience to change. That guy actually forced Wei Qingfan to retreat? What happened? That true origin energy just now seemed to be very domineering. On the stage, Wei Qingfan's hands were clenched into fists. His face was gloomy, and his eyes flashed with a cold ruthlessness. A faint piercing pain came from the center of his left palm. Just now, Chu Hen's attack not only broke through his defense, but also pierced through the flesh of his palm. If it was an ordinary Wu Xiu who was in the elemental opening realm, this would absolutely be impossible. However, Chu Hen did it. He was only in the 6th level of the elemental opening realm, and he was able to injure Wei Qingfan, who was in the core transformation realm. To the latter, this was simply a form of humiliation. "Young Master Wei, are you all right?" A frivolous expression appeared on Chu Hen's face, and a disdainful smile hung on the corner of his mouth. Don't be too proud. This young master only used less than 30% of his strength. If I don't make you scram within 3 moves, then my name is not Wei Qingfan. Then you really have to change your name today. Let's call you Dog Wei. Just nice to feed a dog. This sentence was not funny at all, even if it was heard by the audience in the Tensei Prefecture. The reason was none other than the fact that the person Chu Hen was facing was Wei Qingfan. Almost everyone present knew that Wei Qingfan was a genuine ruthless character. He was really not someone who could be casually offended. However, Chu Hen was not afraid. The enmity between the two of them had long been established. Just now, Wei Qingfan had tried to kill Chu Hen in front of everyone, and this kind of behavior had infuriated Chu Hen. After being bullied to this extent, enduring silently was definitely not Chu Hen's character. "Shut up!" Wei Qingfan was burning with anger. With a swoosh, he flashed away from where he was standing. An even more powerful and vast aura rose from his body. He crossed his hands together, then quickly separated them. A cluster of raging Zhen Yuan started merging and condensing in a spiraling manner. Buzz, there were waves in the air, and a golden saber shadow flew out from Wei Qingfan's palms. The piercingly cold, killing intent was like a bleak cold wind, and the saber shadow was shining with a bright light, as if it was condensed from the essence of the blazing sun. In the face of such a powerful attack, Chu Hen's face did not show the slightest hint of panic. Endless ice profound energy spread out from Chu Hen's body. Chu Hen formed a seal with one hand, and the surrounding white profound energy gathered in front of him like a whale sucking in water. Ice seal, buzz! Immediately, a sharp sword of ice was formed, emitting a cold and sharp aura. With a thought, Chu Hen took advantage of the situation, and the solid sword of ice took the opportunity to attack the piercingly cold saber shadow. The two attacks dragged out a powerful air wave in the air. One was like the sacred radiance of the sun, while the other was like the frost of the bright moon. In the next instant, the blade shadow and the ice sword were like two shooting stars that came from beyond the heavens as they collided head-on with each other. Boom! The astonishing and majestic force spread out in all directions on the platform. The moment the two forces collided, the ice sword instantly shattered. From the blade to the sword hilt, it directly exploded into thousands of ice crystal shards. The audience of Tensei Prefecture below the stage frowned. The difference in strength was still too great. No matter how powerful Chu Hen's martial arts were, it could not make up for the difference in the strength of true inner force. Even so, no one thought that Chu Hen was weak. To be able to fight against Wei Qingfan, who had been famous for a long time, with the strength of the 6th level of the element opening realm, was something to be proud of. Swish! The golden saber shadow was like a hot knife through butter. After shattering the ice sword, it continued to attack Chu Hen without slowing down. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and a surging and domineering black light wrapped around the demon Punisher spear, causing the patterns on the spear to distort strangely. The aura he released increased exponentially. Without hesitation, Chu Hen sent out the demon Punisher's spear in his hand, and a 3-foot spear light swept out like an aurora. Boom! The peerlessly domineering cold spear fiercely collided with the golden saber's shadow. The scattered golden light wantonly splattered everywhere, and the furious shockwave caused numerous cracks to appear on the stage. Chu Hen's second attack directly intercepted the golden saber's shadow and shattered it on the spot. Boom! At the same time that Chu Hen successfully completed his defense, a soaring aura rose from within his body. The lively black light was like an underworld fire. The expressions of the various high-ranked martial houses instructors and students below the stage changed. This Chu Hen was actually planning to directly counterattack. Has this kid gone mad? He even had to use 2 attacks to block Senior Brother Wei's one move, yet he still dares to take the initiative to counterattack. Idiot, once Senior Brother Wei uses his full strength, that guy will be dead. Looking at the approaching Chu Hen with the cold spear in his hand, the corners of Wei Qingfan's mouth curled into a disdainful and cruel smile. Looks like there's no need to wait for the third move. The second move will be enough. Boom! A powerful golden light instantly exploded from Wei Qingfan's right palm. Extremely restless energy waves continuously compressed in his palm. A dazzling golden wheel like the sun rotated in his hand, and a thick aura of danger filled the entire arena. It's the Wei clan's Death Sun Wheel. Chu Hen is dead for sure. The crowd below the stage exclaimed. So this is the Death Sun Wheel. Its power is indeed terrifying. It's said that this Death Sun Wheel is a powerful force condensed from the holy light of the 9 heavenly suns. Without more than 10 years, it's impossible to condense a wheel. This Wei Qingfan is really a goddamn genius. Looking at the palm-sized golden wheel in Wei Qingfan's right hand, the expressions of all the genius students changed. Even Plum Blossom Sword Shen Yunxi, who was standing on the other side, couldn't help but narrow his eyes. A hint of seriousness surged between his brows. This person lives up to his reputation. This is another powerful opponent. As soon as the Death Sun Wheel appeared, the students on the Tensei Prefecture side panicked. Li Hui, Zhou Lu, and the others had forgotten to ask mentor Shi Lan to prepare to stop this battle. Mu Feng, Long Qingyang, Long Xuanshuang, Yiyu Yiyao, and Huangwu's Luo Mengzhen. The surrounding crowd all had different expressions, but almost no one thought that Chu Hen could withstand Wei Qingfan's attack. You should be proud to die under my Death Sun Wheel. Wei Qingfan laughed coldly. Then, he moved, holding the Death Sun Wheel in his hand, and rushed at Chu Hen head-on. Buzz! At the same time, the power that erupted from Chu Hen rose steadily. A cold wind suddenly blew, sweeping away the rocks on the stage. A huge force continuously gathered behind him, causing the space to tremble. Suddenly, a hideous blood-colored skull appeared behind Chu Hen. Wah! The hideous skull opened its mouth and let out a sharp ghost howl that made one's scalp tingle. The second that Chu Hen stabbed the Demon Slayer's spear at Wei Qingfan, the black body of the spear suddenly turned into a dazzling blood-red color. That is? The expressions of the people below the stage changed again, and they were shocked again and again. Gale Blood Shadow Spear! Chu Hen shouted angrily, and a demonic purple light flashed in his deep eyes. The blood-red Demon Slayer's spear once again appeared strands of purple light, and a surging killing intent shook the entire audience. Boom! The Demon Slayer's spear, surrounded by purple light, collided with the Death Sun Wheel in Wei Qingfan's palm. The two extremely powerful forces were like 2 mountains colliding. A biting cold wind suddenly rose, and the chaotic aftershocks of the power swept across the entire arena. The dazzling sun wheel and the blood-red cold spear both emitted a dazzling light that hurt the eyes. Waves were set off in the air, and the sand and stones on the ground were sent flying as cracks appeared like spider webs. However, the people who were even more shocked were also the people present. They originally thought that Chu Hen would definitely be defeated by Wei Qingfan's attack, but they never thought that Wei Qingfan would be able to erupt with such a shocking power. Is this guy really in the natal opening stage? Everyone present was suspicious of the freshman. However, they did not know that Chu Hen had used all his strength in this attack. Not only did he use the power of the chaotic body, but he also used the sacred demonic pupil body to amplify the power of the martial skill. This was enough to prove that Chu Hen did not dare to be careless against Wei Qingfan at all. Rumble! Everyone's hearts were in their throats. However, Wei Qingfan was still a monster with a cultivation of the core transformation stage after all. How could he be suppressed by Chu Hen so easily? The powerful golden light constantly repelled the black and purple light on the Demon Slayer's spear. At the same time, Chu Hen's arm also began to tremble uncontrollably. This level of battle was really too difficult. You have some skills. Wei Qingfan laughed. His laughter was both sarcastic and proud. Now, I announce that you have the right to make me release the second Death Sun Wheel. What? The second Death Sun Wheel? As soon as he said that, everyone present turned pale with fright. Even the instructors of the various martial houses could not maintain their composure anymore. The Wei clan was considered to have some authority in the imperial city. Everyone knew a thing or two about the Death Sun Wheel. Under normal circumstances, an ordinary disciple of the Wei clan would need 10 years to condense the first Death Sun Wheel, let alone the second one. Wei Qingfan was not even 20 years old, but he had condensed the second Death Sun Wheel. Everyone was shocked. They could not think of another word to describe him other than the word monster. Buzz, under everyone's shocked gaze, Wei Qingfan slowly raised his left arm. A golden death sun quickly condensed in his left palm along with a powerful destructive aura. Oh my God! It really is the second Death Sun Wheel. Chapter 149. Oh my God! It really is the second Death Sun Wheel. Looking at the golden wheel in Wei Qingfan's other hand, the sharp gears on its edge looked like the fangs of a ferocious beast. Everyone was filled with shock and horror when they sensed the destructive aura emanating from it. Monster. Truly a monster. Everyone present was shocked. Wei Qingfan had condensed 2 Death Yang wheels before the age of 20. He could truly be considered a genius that was rarely seen in 100 years. However, at this moment, what caused everyone to be even more worried about was Chu Hen's fate. The Death Sun Wheel in Wei Qingfan's right hand was enough to completely suppress Chu Hen's power. Now that there was a second Death Sun Wheel, it was clear that Wei Qingfan wanted to kill Chu Hen in one fell swoop. Wei Qingfan, stop! Long Qingyang could no longer watch from below the stage. His figure flashed and he flew onto the stage. At the same time, Teacher Zhuo Mo of Tensei Prefecture also stopped asking for Shilan's opinion and swiftly rushed onto the stage. He absolutely could not let Chu Hen die in Wei Qingfan's hands. Otherwise, it would be a great loss to the entire Tensei Prefecture. However, how could Wei Qingfan care about Long Qingyang and Zhuo Mo's reprimand? A sinister and vicious glint flashed in his eyes as he raised his left hand and struck towards Chu Hen without any hesitation. Buzz! A destructive aura spread across the stage. The Death Sun Wheel erupted with a dazzling radiance like the sun, and violent energy undulations caused space to distort. At that critical moment, Chu Hen's pupils shrank and he raised his hand without any hesitation. An extreme energy undulation rose like a raging tide, accompanied by a scorching wave of air, and a blazing flame suddenly erupted from Chu Hen's hand. Boom! An unprecedented violent tremor suddenly spread across the stage, causing everyone's expression to change drastically. The surging shockwave pushed Long Qingyang off the stage, while the rest of the crowd on the stage were also pushed back. In an instant, the entire Holy Bell Square trembled uneasily. On the platform, a pillar of fire soared into the sky, suppressing the crowd. The scorching flames rose to the sky like a volcano that had suddenly erupted. A majestic power swept out in all directions as scorching waves of air rippled on the surface of the water. The bricks on the platform cracked and crumbled inch by inch. Even the 5 towering ancient towers in the middle were shaking uncontrollably. Deep cracks appeared on the surface of the towers. This is... Everyone furrowed their brows and their expressions changed. The berserk energy filled more than half of the stage, submerging Chu Hen and Wei Qingfan within it. Even instructor Zhua Mo did not dare to approach the incomparably scorching wave. Heavens, is the power of 2 death sun wheels so terrifying? A shocked voice came from the crowd. Look carefully, that's not the power of the death sun wheel. Then? It should be a spirit fall talisman. No, it's not a spirit fall talisman, but a higher grade fire talisman. What? Fire talisman? Everyone below the stage was stunned. Although the spirit fall talisman and fire talisman only differed by 1 word, they were 2 completely different concepts. A spirit fall talisman could be made by a mid-ranked runemaster, but a fire talisman could only be made by a high-ranked runemaster. Moreover, the materials required for the 2 were extremely different. Everyone's gaze subconsciously swept towards Imperial Martial Academy's core instructor, Hong Lian. As a high-ranked runemaster, she was the only one present who had the ability to make such a talisman. However, Hong Lian's expression was complicated, and her eyes were filled with shock. It was true that she could make a fire talisman, but the power produced by the detonation was not as strong as it seemed. What kind of person was Chu Hen? How could he obtain something like a fire talisman? It wasn't just Hong Lian who had questions, everyone present was filled with confusion. It must be known that even in the Imperial City, only those large families with an extremely powerful background could possess a fire talisman. Chu Hen clearly did not possess such conditions. Could it be that there was a high-ranked runemaster hiding behind him? If that was the case, then they would have to be more polite to Chu Hen in the future. At this moment, the person with the most complicated feelings was Yi Yu. Ever since that incident in Flame City, Chu Hen's body was filled with secret. Fire talisman. A high-ranked runemaster. In the past, Yi Yu could clearly confirm that Chu Hen had no access to these things, but now? Chu Hen's entire body was extremely unfamiliar. The unfamiliarity made Yi Yu feel very uneasy. She couldn't help but recall what Chu Hen had said during the star competition at the Sovereign Arrival Pavilion. Today is just the interest. One day, Chu Hen will definitely stab this cold spear into his throat. At that time, she had thought that it was just an arrogant statement, but now it seemed that Chu Hen was developing in that direction step by step. Boom! A powerful shockwave-like shockwave once again spread out in the chaotic energy zone. 2 young figures, one on the left and the other on the right, swiftly retreated backward. He's out. Everyone's hearts were in their throats, especially Long Qingyang, Long Xuanshuang, Mu Feng, Zhou Lu, Zuemo, and the others. Their gazes followed Chu Hen's movements. Chu Hen held the demon Punisher spear diagonally behind his back. His handsome face was slightly pale, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Although he was injured, his eyes shone brightly. Big brother Chu Hen is fine. Yi Yao breathed a sigh of relief, her hands covered in sweat. Luo Mengchang, who was on the Imperial Martial Academy's side, couldn't help but smile faintly. Big sister Hong Lian, he's not dead. What you said just now wasn't right. Humph. Hong Lian snorted softly. When she thought of how Chu Hen had destroyed her hate illusory array, a cold glint flashed through her eyes. Seeing that Chu Hen was fine, the Tensei Prefecture's side naturally cheered loudly. There was a gentle glint in Shi Lan's beautiful eyes. Her red lips moved slightly as she mumbled to herself, "Looks like that should be your most powerful ability right now. It's even better than what I expected." The reason why Shi Lan could become the core team of teachers in Tensei Prefecture was because she had her own teaching system. In this system, the most important thing was to first understand the limits of the direct disciples under him. Therefore, from the very beginning, Shilan did not stop this battle because she wanted to have a rough understanding of Chu Hen's strength. Of course, it must be said that Shilan was really confident in Chu Hen. If it was someone else, they would definitely not let their student fight against a genius like Wei Qingfan. Chu Hen suffered some light injuries, while Wei Qingfan did not suffer any obvious injuries. However, his hair was slightly disheveled, and a few parts of his clothes had been burnt. This result caused all sorts of anger and killing intent to rise in Wei Qingfan's heart. Damned scoundrel! Wei Qingfan's face was ashen. This was the first time he had been beaten so badly by someone. Moreover, it was Wu Xiu, who was only at the 6th level of the natal opening realm. How could he not be angry? A cold smile appeared on Chu Hen's lip. 3 moves have passed. Congratulations on changing your name. Feed the dog, feed the dog. However, after hearing Chu Hen's words, everyone below secretly shook their heads. There really weren't many people who were able to make Wei Qingfan reach such a level. You're courting death. Hey, what's wrong? Do you want to bite me? Chu Hen, stop. In the end, Instructor Zhuo Mo did not dare to let Chu Hen continue like this. How was Wei Qingfan's strength? There were not many people present who did not know. Chu Hen had to use a fire spirit talisman to save his life. This was already a huge loss. In the capital, there were not many younger generation members of the families who could wantonly use a treasure like the fire spirit talisman. Usually, they would only use the talisman when their lives were at stake. Although Wei Qingfan had threatened Chu Hen's life just now, if one were to really talk about it, the situation just now could have been avoided. However, Chu Hen's temper was so stubborn that he repeatedly created all sorts of soul-stirring scenes. Moreover, from the audience's point of view, a fire spirit talisman was definitely Chu Hen's entire fortune. If he were to fight again, he would not have a second talisman to save his life. That's about enough. Although Zhuo Mo's tone was reprimanding, it was filled with concern. Chu Hen pondered for a moment and slowly restrained the restless aura around his body. However, Chu Hen's intention to end things here did not mean that Wei Qingfan would just let go. Victory hasn't been decided yet. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Wei Qingfan's tone was cold and his expression was dark. His powerful aura permeated the air once more. Wei Qingfan, 3 moves have passed. What else do you want? Zhuo Mo shouted. Heh! Wei Qingfan did not give Zhuo Mo any face. When did I say that I would let him go after 3 moves? This is a matter between us. As a teacher of the academy, it's best that you don't interfere. Everyone knew about Wei Qingfan's background. Although Zhuo Mo was a high-ranking teacher in Tensei Prefecture, he could not do anything to him. You've gone too far. Long Qingyang did not hesitate and tried to help. Big brother, don't move. However, Chu Hen raised his hand and stopped him. Then, he looked at Wei Qingfan with a playful gaze and said with disdain and contempt, I believe that young Master Wei will obediently scram down very soon. Get lost. This word was especially forceful. Everyone present was taken aback. Let me ask you, do you think you have the right to say such shameless nonsense? Before Wei Qingfan could finish speaking, he stopped. He saw that between the index and middle fingers of Chu Hen's right hand, there was a talisman. The talisman was covered with lightning markings, and an obscure yet extreme power surged within it. This is? Divine lightning talisman? Chapter 150. What's that? Sky thunder talisman? Boom! In an instant, an unprecedented commotion and shock was set off in the entire crowd. Looking at the talisman on the jade that was covered with lightning markings on Chu Hen's finger, everyone was dumbfounded and their eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. They had thought that a fire spirit talisman was Chu Hen's life-saving trump card. But who would have thought that Chu Hen would have another sky thunder talisman in his hand? Where did this guy get so many treasures? A voice full of astonishment came from the crowd below the stage. There must be an expert behind him. This person has really hidden himself well. All sorts of guesses rose and fell from the audience. At this moment, even Long Qingyang and Long Xuanshuang, the two closest people to Chu Hen, were stunned. Growing up in Flame City, Chu Hen probably didn't even know what a spirit fall talisman was, let alone a powerful defensive treasure like a fire spirit talisman or a sky thunder talisman. There were only a few high-level pattern artists in the imperial capital, and those that could refine fire spirit talismans and sky thunder talismans were even rarer. The crowd couldn't help but once again target Imperial Martial Academy's Red Lotus. However, from the latter's expression, it was clear that she had no relationship with Chu Hen. So where did Chu Hen get this powerful talisman from? This guy, he's hiding so many treasures? He doesn't even know how to share some with me. Mu Feng curled his lips, looking unhappy that Li Hui owed him money. This is called not revealing one's wealth. I really admire senior brother Chu Hen more and more, Li Hui said. To the side, Zhou Lu, He Qingyuan, Bian Hong, Lu Yu, and the other genius students of Tensei Prefecture were also amazed. Even the usually quiet Bai Yuyue was a little surprised. With the heavenly thunder talisman in his hand, Chu Hen slightly suppressed Wei Qinfan in front of him. Compared to the fire spirit talisman from before, the heavenly thunder talisman's power was much more concentrated and its killing power was much greater. Even a genius like Wei Qinfan would suffer greatly if he was not careful. However, the Wei clan was a renowned clan in the capital after all. As the strongest genius of the Wei clan's younger generation, how could he not even have a defensive item? Humph, it's just a heavenly thunder talisman. Do you think you can overturn the heavens? Buzz, as Wei Qingfan's disdainful voice fell, an obscure energy wave was released from his body. Gentle silver light surged around his body. The silver light slowly gathered and condensed into an illusory silver armor. Everyone was stunned. Wei Qingfan was still Wei Qingfan after all. His family background was truly extraordinary. A cold and smug smile returned to Wei Qingfan's face. But before Wei Qingfan could finish being happy, a mischievous smile appeared on the corners of Chu Hen's mouth. Hee, I'm sorry, I forgot to take out another talisman. What? Clatter, before his voice died away, Chu Hen flicked his fingers, and another jade talisman was sandwiched between his middle and ring fingers. This talisman was engraved with white snowflake patterns, and a chilling aura was transmitted from it. *T, the violent ice talisman. A trembling voice came from the crowd. Boom, in an instant, the entire Holy Bell Square was in chaos, and everyone present became restless. Everyone looked at Chu Hen with strange eyes. He was a real rich man. First there was the Fire Spirit Talisman, then the Heavenly Thunder Talisman, and now even the Violent Ice Talisman. It was hard for the people present to express the degree of shock in their hearts. Across the entire Sacred Star Dynasty, no senior tattooist could refine these talismans of 3 different attributes. The only one who could do this was the one and only spiritual tattooist in the capital, whom even the royal family had to show some respect to. Could it be that Chu Hen had something to do with that person? If that was the case, even the Wei family wouldn't dare touch him, let alone Wei Qinfan. But soon everyone denied this conjecture. After all, it was not the first time that Chu Hen had been in the capital. From the first day he arrived, he had been rejected by nearly 30 high-level martial houses. If Chu Hen really had something to do with that person, all the martial houses would probably send 8 carriages to welcome Chu Hen into the school. Since Chu Hen had nothing to do with that person, where did he get so many powerful high-level talismans? All kinds of doubts filled the hearts of the people present. At this time, the young and handsome figure standing on the stage became tall and mysterious. Yi Yu, who was in the team of Tifeng Province, clenched her hands tightly, and her face became paler and paler. Was this Chu Hen in front of her really the person she knew in the Flame City? Yi Yu was very doubtful. But the answer was unquestionable. What? Child Wei, Do you still want to fight? Chu Hen held two high-level talismans between his right fingers, with a playful smile on his face. Wei Qingfan's face was cloudy and extremely gloomy. No matter how strong he was, it was impossible for him to be safe and sound under the bombardment of two high-level talismans. Today, he could only forcefully swallow this anger back into his stomach. You're lucky, Wei Qingfan scolded fiercely. Haha, you should be lucky. Now you can get out of here. Chu Hen sneered frivolously. Humph. Wei Qingfan took a deep breath to calm down his anger. I won't let go of what happened today. After saying that, Wei Qingfan threw down a harsh sentence, swung his sleeves angrily, and walked down the almost flattened high platform with a gloomy face. The atmosphere of the audience was strange. There was no cheering, no frustration, only a sigh gazing at Wei Qingfan's back. Chu Hen's eyes similarly surged with an incomparably cold frost. If the situation did not forbid it, he would definitely not hesitate to throw the two talismans in his hands at the other party. New sorrow and old hatred followed one another. The grievances between the two had already reached an irreconcilable point. Of course, today, Chu Hen was fully deserving of being the victor. But this is also good. It won't take long. Even without the talismans, I will still kill you with the Demon Punisher's spear. Chu Hen said in his heart. This storm was finally over. The big stone that was pressing down on everyone's heart disappeared. At this moment, an old man from St. Bell City suddenly stood up and scolded Chu Hen, Wei Qingfan, and Shen Yunxi on the other side. The three of you destroyed our illusionary soul bell. Who will bear the responsibility? Wow. As soon as he said that, everyone present suddenly realized the original purpose of gathering here today. It was originally a trade between St. Bell City and the various high-ranked martial houses, but in the end it turned into a personal grudge between the students. No one expected the opening ceremony of the illusionary soul bell to turn into such a situation. Humph, we were kind enough to let you share the power of the illusionary soul bell, but you ignored our existence and fought for the artifact's spirit. What difference is there between you and bandits? The old man was very agitated, pointing at the leading mentors of the various martial houses and scolding them. The mentors were a little embarrassed. Stop it. Lei Shi, the patriarch, staggered forward, shook his head, and sighed helplessly. He said, since it has come to this, it doesn't matter who is responsible. This matter is over. Patriarch, that's enough. Lei Shi raised his hand slightly and looked at the mentors in front of him with his muddy eyes. Our previous agreement has been changed. St. Bell City will not be able to share the power of the illusionary soul bell with you in the future. So, let this batch of young people from our city enter your martial houses. As for the future, Patriarch Lei Shi. Without waiting for Lei Shi to finish speaking, Yu Shan of the Mammoth Martial House took a step forward, cupped his fists and said, the Mammoth Martial House is partly responsible for today's matter. You have made this decision on behalf of our dean. The previous agreement is still valid. The young people of your St. Bell City can enter my Mammoth Martial House at any time. Mr. Yu Shan, you. Also, if St. Bell City is attacked by demonic beasts or harassed by evildoers in the future, the Mammoth Martial House will definitely come to support you if you can't solve the problem. The moment Yu Shan's words came out, everyone in St. Bell City was instantly moved. Immediately after, Li Gu of Tifeng Province also stepped forward and said, Patriarch Lei Shi, our Tifeng Province will also abide by the previous agreement. So will our Lingxi Martial House. Bright Moon Academy welcomes you at any time. One by one, the core mentors expressed their decision. Everyone present was the core team of the various martial houses, so they still had the authority to speak on behalf of their respective schools' deans. After all, every martial house present today was responsible for today's matter. Especially Difeng, Lingxi, and Tianxing. They couldn't shirk their responsibility. St. Bell City was originally the weaker party, and with the addition of the illusionary spirit bell, It was like adding hail to snow. This could also be considered a kind of compensation for the Marshall houses. After all, St. Bell City didn't have a large population, and there weren't many juniors in a year. The distribution of the Marshall houses didn't matter. Since the mentors had already said it like this, it would be a bit unreasonable for the people of St. Bell City to pursue the matter of the illusionary spirit Bell's artifact spirit being destroyed. Everyone's anger was gradually alleviated. After that, the mentors began to head to the conference hall for a detailed discussion, and the disciples of the various Marshall houses left one after another. Haha, Chu-Hen, tell us honestly, where did you get so many treasures? Did you become a gigolo for some rich and powerful woman? I think only you, Mu-Feng, would do such a thing. Don't slander Chu-Hen. Zhou-Lu curled her lips. Go away, I see that your head is full of Chu-Hen. Have you taken a fancy to him? What nonsense are you talking about? The people of Tensei Prefecture gathered around Chu-Hen and made a ruckus. The others in the square also left one after another. Chapter 151. Little Yao, wait a moment. Just as the crowd from the various Marshall houses dispersed, Chu-Hen walked straight towards the crowd from Tifeng Province. Yi Yao's eyes lit up, and she quickly turned around. Big brother Chu-Hen? She smiled faintly, and two cute dimples appeared at the corners of her mouth. Not far away, Yi Yu could not help but frown slightly. Wei Qingfan's expression, which had just eased up, immediately turned gloomy again. Little Yao, I have two small things for you. As he spoke, Chu-Hen took out two jade slips and handed them to her. They were the Sky Thunder Talisman and Violent Ice Talisman that he had just taken out on the stage. Seeing this item, the surrounding crowd could not help but cast envious gazes. Yi Yao was stunned, and her eyes widened as she looked at Chu-Hen. This? For me? It's too precious, big brother Chu-Hen. Take it. Without waiting for Yi Yao to refuse, Chu-Hen directly stuffed the two talismans into her hands and bluntly said, If someone wants to plot against you, use this to hit his head. Chu-Hen's words had a hidden meaning, and Yi Yao naturally understood what he was referring to. Similarly, Chu-Hen's words were also for Wei Qingfan to hear. The latter's expression became increasingly gloomy, and his eyes were filled with anger and killing intent. That night, Yi Yao came to find Chu-Hen, and the two had a simple conversation. Chu-Hen had always treated this kind and cute girl as a younger sister. Although he did not know Wei Qingfan's real purpose in getting close to Yi Yao and her sister, it was still better to have some precautions. She could not control Yi Yu, and Chu-Hen did not want to. However, he did not want to see anything happen to Yi Yao. Chu-Hen had really given the Thunder Talisman and Violent Ice Talisman to Yi Yao in front of everyone, which was actually a warning to Wei Qingfan to stay away from Yi Yao. Of course, last night, before Senior Thief Rat Godly Thief took away Housie, he had given Chu-Hen a bag full of high-level curse charms. There were at least dozens of them. Chu-Hen still had the capital to squander. Looking at the two high-level charms in Yi Yao's hands, many people present revealed envious expressions. The explosive power of the spirit fire symbol was something that everyone had seen with their own eyes. To these young students, a high-level symbol was equivalent to a life-saving trump card. Anyone would want one. However, the one with the most complicated feelings was Yi Yu. Even Wei Qingfan had never given her such an expensive gift. As for Chu-Hen, a man that she had previously disdained, he was actually treating her sister so well. Yi Yu's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Feeling the warmth in Chu-Hen's eyes, Yi Yao smiled and nodded. Thank you, big brother Chu-Hen. I know what to do. It's best to have two together, right? Haha, yes. Chu-Hen smiled. He nodded slightly and said, Go. After a simple farewell, Yi Yao followed Yi Yu and the others to leave. At this moment, Wei Qingfan did not forget to glance at Chu-Hen with a gaze as cold as an arrow. However, Chu-Hen did not care about it in the slightest. New hatred and old hatred, there will be a day when these debts will be properly settled. So that bracelet was given to her? On the other side, Imperial Martial Academy's Luo Menchang was about to talk to Chu Hen, but the bracelet inlaid with blue gemstones on Yi Yao's wrist first attracted her attention. Luo Menchang had seen that bracelet before. Back in Qingyun Pavilion, she and Chu Hen had reached out for the bracelet at the same time, and their fingertips had unconsciously touched. It was also because of that brief encounter that led to what happened in the Sky Lake Mountains. Alright, that girl is quite cute, and that bracelet is perfect for her. Luo Menchang pouted slightly, and her beautiful eyes wandered. Then, she changed her mind about talking to Chu Hen and turned to leave. After that, Chu Hen, who was surrounded by Long Qingyang, Mu Feng, Li Hui, and Zhou Lu, did not notice the situation around him, and a scene similar to a trial began to take place. Good fellow, even Wei Qingfan fell in your hands. Tell me honestly, where did you get the high-grade spirit talisman? And what kind of power did you get from the illusionary spirit bell? Chu Hen could not help but feel a headache coming on, but he could only respond with silence. Over at Lingxi Martial House. Brother, what's wrong? Xian Wen's expression was slightly gloomy as she said to a handsome and extraordinary man in front of her. The latter's gaze that was as sharp as a sword looked at Chu Hen, who was surrounded by everyone, and indifferently replied, "He will be an opponent that is even harder to deal with than Wei Qingfan." "Humph, it's just because of the high-grade spirit talisman," Xinwen replied unhappily. "Apart from the high-grade spirit talisman, who in the entire imperial city can withstand Wei Qingfan's death wheel of sun? I don't care. Brother, you must avenge Shang Zhe." Xin Yunxi's eyes narrowed, and a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. "I'm starting to get interested in him, he, and that Long Qingyang guy." The opening ceremony of the illusionary spirit bell came to an end. At noon the next day, the teams from the various martial houses were preparing to leave. Outside St. Bell City, the teams had already packed up. Other than the geniuses from the martial houses who were about to leave, there were also over 200 youngsters from St. Bell City. According to the previous agreement, the youngsters of St. Bell City could enter these martial houses unconditionally. Everyone made their choice. Originally, most of the people would choose the 5 most famous academies, Imperial Wind, Lingxi, Mammoth, and Bright Moon, but who would have thought that Chu Hen would make such a huge accident and cause St. Bell City to recognize the teaching ability of Tensei Prefecture? With Lei Zhen as the leader, almost half of the people chose Heavenly Star. As for the genius girl named Lei Li, she chose the head of the 5 major academies, Imperial Martial. Beside the ancient road, on the fragrant grass road, outside the ancient city gate, parting words, "Grandpa Chief, St. Bell City is our home. We will definitely come back," Lei Zhen said solemnly to Lei Shi and the other people of St. Bell City. Many of the youngsters had tears in their eyes. This was their first time leaving St. Bell City. They were excited to see the outside world, but also a little sad. Lei Shi nodded and patted the back of Lei Zhen's hand. His murky eyes glanced at Xilan, Honglian, Yushan, Li Gu, and the other core teachers. "Everyone, please take care of these children. We will do our best." Yushan cupped his fists and said. The other teachers also responded. Lei Shi let out a long sigh. No matter what, St. Bell City would not disappear in the long river of time. This could be considered his last contribution to the tribe. "Go. Soar freely." Lei Shi clan leader raised his arm, and his wrinkled face was filled with hope. Many people couldn't help but feel touched. At this moment Chu Hen, who stood behind Xilan, couldn't help but think of Long Zhan. When they parted in Flame City, even though he was reluctant, he still let Chu Hen fly without hesitation. How could a young man not spread his wings and fly? The rock flew with the wind and soared 90,000 miles. He looked up into the sky. Beyond the clouds, the blue sky was as vast as the sea. Chapter 152. After nearly 10 days, the trip to the Tianqi mountain range finally came to an end. The adventuring teams of the various high-ranked martial houses began to embark on their return journey. The Imperial City. Tensei Prefecture. Wow, we're finally back. I'm so tired. This time, I'm going to sleep for 3 days and 3 nights, not 7 days and 7 nights. Be careful, don't accidentally fall into a deep sleep. Go to hell with your uncle. After the intense trip to the Tianqi mountain range, everyone felt an indescribable sense of relief when they returned to the familiar place. However, for the people of St. Bell City, it was the opposite. The prosperity of the Imperial City and the magnificent buildings made them feel a sense of novelty, but at the same time, they didn't know what to do. Hee, don't be too restrained. Mu Feng patted Lei Zhen's shoulder with a "I'm very familiar with you" look. From now on, we're all brothers. If there's anything you don't understand, just come and find me. Tonight, I'll take you to the 10,000 flower house. The girls there, oh no, the wine is very fragrant. Go, don't be a bad influence on Lei Zhen. On the side, Zhou Lu glared at Mu Feng and said, Junior brother Lei Zhen, you better stay away from him. This person's 3 views are not right. Damn, how is my 3 views not right? I live under the same roof as Chu Hen. Chu Hen hasn't been led astray by me, right? As soon as the two returned, they quarreled. Chu Hen rubbed his head, feeling a headache coming on. However, when he thought about how Haozi and the robber rat god stole away, he felt a little disappointed. Although Lei Zhen was 1 or 2 years older than the others, he had never traveled far before, so it was inevitable that he would be a little rigid. But seeing that everyone was so enthusiastic, the apprehension in his heart lessened a little. Xilan looked at the students who were waiting to be dismissed, then glanced at Lei Zhen and the rest of the younger generation of St. Bell City. She then said to Zuomo, bring these new students to report to Elder Song Chenglai later. I will report this matter to Principal Jiang now, yes. Zuomo nodded seriously. Xilan didn't say anything else and left first. Alright, everyone, the Heaven Lake Monster Hunt is over. Holy Bell City's new students, please follow me to register your information. Zuomo clapped his hands, signaling the crowd to disperse. Instructor Zuomo, will our star points increase? A student suddenly asked. Yeah? Instructor Zuomo, how many star points will I get from this mission? Star points? Lei Zhen and the others looked confused. At the side, Mu Feng explained, when a student accumulates a certain amount of points, they can exchange for cultivation resources provided by the academy. You will get it too, I see. Lei Zhen nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. Of course you will get star points, Zuomo answered without hesitation. He then continued, as for how many star points you will get, it will depend on your performance in the Heaven Lake Monster Hunt. After we finish here, us instructors and instructor Xilan will discuss and give you a comprehensive evaluation. 3 days later, you can go to Nebula Pavilion to farm star points. After hearing Zuomo's words, everyone was very excited. Many students participated in the Heaven Lake Monster Hunt for star points. After all, only by continuously accumulating star points could they obtain better resources from the academy and increase their cultivation faster. After a few simple words, Zuomo brought the new students of St. Bell City to report to Song Chenglai. The others also dispersed. After being outside for so many days, they really missed a comfortable room. A moment later, Chu Hen returned to the courtyard he lived in. Sigh, the little mouse actually left without saying a word. Mu Feng seemed to be thinking of him a little. Before, he and Haozi got along pretty well. They went through thick and thin together, advancing and retreating together. Because there were many people before, he didn't feel anything. Now that he heard the silence, he felt a little uncomfortable. Chu Hen smiled and said, before Haozi left, he said that the next time he came back, he would hang you up and beat you. Damn, what a joke. You think you're so great just because you have a void-piercing realm expert as your master? Mu Feng glared and scolded. Do you know what the limit of Haozi's bloodline is? What is it? A little mouse. Heavenly mouse profound body. What? profound body? Mu Feng's eyes widened and he couldn't believe it. Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows slightly raised, and he smiled, minding his own business as he walked into his own room. Mu Feng came back to his senses after a while, licked the corner of his mouth and whispered, "Tisk, is the profound body that great? Well, fine. The profound body is really amazing. Little mouse, I hope you come back and beat up Chu Hen." Chu Hen, who returned to his room, closed the door and then sat down on the bed. The familiar environment entered his eyes, and there was an indescribable comfort in his heart. Thinking about this trip to the Tianqi Mountains, it was really unexpected. All kinds of unexpected things happened one after another. But Chu Hen's harvest was not small. First was the blood yuan fruit, then the demon pupil sacred body was upgraded to the 2-star realm, and then he obtained the upgraded flaming sun body refining technique from the butcher hand vampire ghost. Then, he met the thief rat thief godly thief and Xia Qing, and opened the sacred star heavenly book of the royal family. Thinking of this, Chu Hen couldn't help but raise his left hand, and looked at his palm with a hint of solemnity in his eyes. If one looked carefully, they could vaguely see 7 faint star marks hidden in his palm, emitting a trace of obscure power. The sacred star dynasty's biggest secret, Chu Hen murmured to himself softly. What could it be? After a short period of thinking, Chu Hen didn't delve into it. After all, with his current cultivation, it was difficult to control the power of the 7 star points. At least before he entered the core transformation realm, he didn't need to think about it anymore. Although the things that happened on this trip were unexpected, there was no doubt that Chu Hen was the one who gained the most. Just the bag of high-grade talismans that the thief rat thief godly compensated him was a treasure that made people drool. Of course, what surprised Chu Hen the most was that he opened his Naiwen palace and condensed the Dao seed. Now that he thought about it, this made Chu Hen feel a little unreal. He had become a beginner inscription master without any reason. An ordinary person would have to spend years, or even more than 10 years, to cultivate their mental strength to open their Naiwen palace and condense the Dao seed. However, Chu Hen did it so easily. It must be said that such a great opportunity was really unimaginable. Let's give it a try first. Otherwise, I'll be happy for nothing. Then, Chu Hen sat cross-legged and merged the power of his divine sense into his Naiwen palace. Buzz, along with a strange wave of power, Chu Hen successfully sensed the Reiki energy in his Naiwen palace. It's true. Seems like it's not a dream. Chu Hen was secretly happy. Then, his divine sense detected the situation in his Naiwen palace. The dim and hazy space was about 10 feet in radius. The surroundings and the sky were a chaotic world, like an undeveloped wasteland. In the center of the Naiwen palace, there was a crystal-clear sprout with a glaze-like luster. 2 new leaves were emitting vitality. The silver runes on the leaves were flashing, bright, and novel. My Dao seed has already sprouted. I should be a beginner 3rd stage inscription master. A beginner 3rd stage inscription master was equivalent to Wu Xiu, who was at the 3rd stage of meridian opening. If he was just an inscription master who had just condensed the Dao seed, he would only be at the beginner 1st stage and would not germinate. However, not only did Chu Hen's Dao seed germinate, it also grew new leaves. Therefore, he was even stronger than a beginner inscription master. In the future, as his Dao seed continued to grow, it would become a street tree. The space in his Naiwen palace would expand, and the Reiki energy would become stronger. According to Chu Hen's understanding from Longzhan in the Fire of Rain City, the street tree of a middle-level inscription master would be more than 10 meters tall, and the street tree of a senior inscription master would be more than 100 meters tall. As for the lofty spiritual tattooist, his street tree would be even bigger. Chu Hen sensed the crystal-clear sprout carefully. To be honest, he had never thought that he could be related to a spiritual tattooist one day. He was very clear about the status of a spiritual tattooist in the Sacred Star Dynasty. Especially after he became a spiritual tattooist, he would be respected and noble. Even the royal family of the dynasty would treat him with respect. Of course, Chu Hen was very clear that he was thousands of miles away from becoming a spiritual tattooist. Then, with a thought from Chu Hen, a trace of Reiki energy was released from the Tao seed. There was a slight fluctuation of power in his Niwen palace. The 2 golden leaves gave out a bright light, and the silver runes on them also flickered. Subsequently, a few strange balls of light actually rose up from the Tao seed. These balls of light were multicolored, and they were dazzling like glass. If one observed carefully, he would find that these light balls were the runes of curse. Thunder curse, water curse, gale curse, frost curse, raging fire curse, and soul-gathering curse, all 6 runes of curse appeared here. At this moment, if someone saw this scene, he would be so shocked that his jaw would drop to the ground. Previously in St. Bell City, Wei Qingfan got the thunder curse, Shen Yunxi got the water curse, Bai Yue got the gale curse, Long Xuanshuan got the frost curse, Lei Li got the raging fire curse, and Yi Yao got the soul-gathering curse. Each of the geniuses only obtained a single curse rune. And these 6 runes were all obtained by Chu Hen alone. If this news spread out, it would cause all kinds of commotion. Of course, the power of runes was not that easy to master. In this regard, Chu Hen still had to put in more effort. I wonder what kind of runes she has mastered? In Chu Hen's mind, an image of a beautiful young girl with a peerlessly beautiful appearance suddenly appeared. On the way back to the Heavenly Star Martial House, he had learned from Mu Feng, Zhou Lu, and the others about what kind of power the various geniuses had obtained from the illusionary spirit bell. Only Chu Hen and Luo Mengshang, no one knew what kind of power they had obtained. Buzz buzz. Suddenly, a strange wave of power interfered with Chu Hen's thoughts. At this moment, dense golden light spots appeared in Chu Hen's Niwen palace. The golden light spots were like stars, floating in the sky above the Tao seed. It was extremely strange then, the endless light spots strangely gathered together, and an illusory golden light shadow appeared in front of Chu Hen at a speed visible to the naked eye. This is... Chu Hen's heart suddenly trembled, and all kinds of monstrous waves were set off in his heart. Chapter 153. This is... illusory spirit bell? Looking at the golden bell phantom formed by the golden light spots floating out of thin air in his mud pill palace, Chu Hen's heart shrank, and his heart was filled with astonishment and disbelief. To be precise, this should be the spirit of the illusory spirit bell, but wasn't the artifact spirit destroyed? Previously in St. Bell City, Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi's joint attack had blasted the spirit of the illusory spirit bell in front of everyone. But what was going on in front of him? Buzz, a strange power fluctuation was faintly transmitted from the golden bell phantom. It floated steadily above Chu Hen's Tao seed, and mysterious ancient runes were flashing on the illusory bell's wall. Was it at that time? Chu Hen's heart suddenly lit up. He remembered that after the spirit of the illusory spirit bell was blasted by Wei Qingfan and Shen Yunxi, there seemed to be a vague golden light flowing into his body. At that time, Chu Hen didn't care about it, and only thought that it was the aftermath of the explosion of the spirit. Now it seemed that it was not the case. It seems that the spirit was not destroyed, but entered my mud-pill palace. Regarding this discovery, Chu Hen was both surprised and happy, and his heart was especially excited. It was indeed a spirit weapon, and it would not be destroyed so easily. Although he didn't know what rank the illusory spirit bell was on the list of spirit weapons, it must be at the top based on the fact that it contained a spirit. After thinking for a short while, Chu Hen slightly calmed down the excitement in his heart. Then, he spread out the Reiki energy and carefully moved towards the golden bell. The Reiki energy of a third-grade beginner rune master was almost like a small stream, weak and insignificant, but for the current Chu Hen, he was already very satisfied. Zing! As soon as the Reiki energy touched the golden bell, it immediately caused a crisp, vibrating sound. Then, the complicated runes on the bell's wall shone brightly like a silver light flowing. An active power quietly spread out. Specks of dazzling light suffused with a hazy radiance and sprinkled down on the Tao seed below. The Tao seed that had already sprouted swayed its 2 golden leaves, and the runes on the leaves flickered. When the Tao seed and the fluorescent dot came into contact, the method of condensing runes appeared in Chu Hen's mind. The method to condense tens of thousands of runes poured into Chu Hen's memory like a tidal wave. Then, the effects, meaning, and arrangement of these runes. A lot of information was subsequently received by Chu Hen. At this moment, the memories in Chu Hen's brain were like a dried-up riverbed that was constantly gushing out flowing water. After an unknown period of time, Chu Hen gradually came back to his senses. As he sensed the huge amount of memories in his mind, he felt that it was all very surreal. No wonder there were so many rune artists in St. Bell City in the past. So this is the biggest secret. Chu Hen muttered to himself in amazement. In less than half a day's time, it was as if Chu Hen had flipped through a Tsihai ancient book. He also memorized all the contents in the ancient book. Rune artists used Reiki energy to control runes and derive powerful rune power. In order to become a true engraving artist, there were a few conditions that were indispensable. First of all, it was the Tao seed. This was the most basic condition. Only when the Tao seed was formed would it produce Reiki energy. Second, it was to learn runes. This was the same logic as an illiterate child needing a teacher. Only by learning and having some understanding of the runes could one condense the runes with spiritual force. Third, it was the arrangement of runes. The arrangement of runes was equivalent to the martial arts technique that Wu Xiu used. A single rune didn't have much power. However, if dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of runes were arranged and combined, the power that erupted would be absolutely terrifying. Chu Hen recalled the time when he and mentor Shilan were ambushed by a mysterious person after chasing after Butcher Hand Blood Ghost. The Wu Hen illusory array was an illusory killing array formed by hundreds of runes. At that time, the 2 of them were almost killed in the array. In addition to using rune arrangement to create powerful talisman arrays, there were also alchemy, weapon crafting, talisman making, and many other fields that used the power of runes. There were rune artists who specialized in this field in every major field. Of course, there was no lack of all-round rune artists who had done research in all major fields. However, there were very few engravers among the engravers, and there were very few all-round engravers. In a short period of time, Chu Hen seemed to have understood a lot. His mind and mind were enlightened. He clearly knew nothing about rune artists in the past and only knew some basic knowledge. Now, the things that Chu Hen understood and mastered were absolutely huge. However, then again, understanding was one thing. With the level of a third-grade primary rune artist, Chu Hen couldn't condense a few runes at all, let alone arrange them and use them in various major fields. Sigh, there's still a long way to go. Chu Hen couldn't help but sigh. The path of rune artists wasn't something that anyone could walk. However, compared to others, Chu Hen's biggest advantage was the spirit of the phantom bell. Now that he had mastered so much rune knowledge in his memory, it could be said that without the guidance of a mentor, Chu Hen could also continue on the path of rune artists. The only thing I need to do now is to improve my realm, Chu Hen said to himself. Of course, with Chu Hen's current level, he could still use a few beginner-level small rune arrays. However, these beginner-level rune arrays had almost no power. I can't use rune techniques for the time being, but I can first control the 6 types of runes. Chu Hen's eyes lit up. Rune symbols were special rune arrays that were condensed by rune technique. They could be used by individuals and could be activated by true inner strength. If one wanted to condense such a powerful secret technique like rune symbols, the minimum standard was to reach the attainment of a spirit-level rune artist. Earlier, the various geniuses had obtained a single type of talisman seal, whereas Chu Hen had obtained 6. Even though it was a lot, if he wanted to grasp and control all of them, then he would need to spend 6 times the time and effort compared to others. Fortunately, Chu Hen had always been a diligent person. For him, this was a challenge that motivated him. Immediately, Chu Hen calmed his mind and began to operate the true inner strength in his body, trying to condense the first type of rune symbol. The first type of rune symbol that Chu Hen wanted to condense was the Spirit Gathering Rune, a rune symbol that could accelerate the absorption of the spiritual power of heaven and earth. The power of this rune symbol could speed up the absorption of spiritual power by at least 3 times and up to 10 times. This ability was obviously a cultivation accelerator. Buzz buzz. On the bed, Chu Hen closed his eyes slightly, and his palms faced each other. 2 golden beams of light were like 2 spiritual fish chasing each other, constantly chasing each other, forming a rotating disc. Under Chu Hen's steady control, a bright and resplendent glass-like talisman quietly condensed in his palm. As soon as this rune was formed, the airflow in the room became very restless. The spiritual power of heaven and earth from all directions seemed to be attracted and quickly gathered towards the rune symbol in front of Chu Hen. Immediately after, as the spiritual power of heaven and earth surged into the rune symbol, the previously stable power instantly became extremely restless. It was like the inside of a ball of water was surging with incomparably powerful inner strength, manic like the brewing lava of a volcano. Bang! Along with a heavy muffled sound, the rune directly exploded in Chu Hen's palm. A circle of vigorous air waves spread out, and the whole room faintly shook. Chu Hen, who was impacted by the aftermath, almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "What are you doing? Do you want to demolish the house?" Mu Feng's scolding voice came from next door. "This?" Chu Hen did not pay attention to Mu Feng outside, but his handsome eyebrows slightly furrowed as he looked at his own hands. "This failed?" Of course, this was not particularly surprising. The power of the rune symbol originated from the evolution of the rune symbol, and the power contained in it was originally violent. It was not so easy to successfully control this power. Again. Buzz Chu Hen once again released the true inner strength in his body, and then condensed it according to the operation path of the Spirit Gathering Rune. With an obscure and restless power, a strange golden rune appeared in front of Chu Hen. Bang! Not long after, another violent shock spread out from the room. This time, not only Chu Hen's room was shaking, but even the whole courtyard was shaking. "Damn! Are you done yet?" Mu Feng, who was next door, continued cursing. But not long after, another wave of violent energy swept over. Even though there was a layer of wall between them, Mu Feng was almost overturned. "Bastard, if you don't stop, I'll let the dog bite you." After an unknown amount of time, the world finally returned to peace. Mu Feng's eyelids drooped, and he sat on the ground listlessly. His lifeless eyes looked at the messy ground, and he suddenly felt like crying but had no tears. The tables and chairs fell to the ground, and there were small cracks on the wall. Bang! A few bricks fell from the sky, directly hitting Mu Feng's head, causing dust to fly and gravel to splatter. Mu Feng raised his head with a bitter expression, and looked at the moon in the sky through the broken roof. He almost went crazy. "Motherf *Ker, I'm going to move." However, in fact, Chu Hen, who was immersed in the state of cultivation, did not know the situation around him. He did not know that his unintentional action almost caused Mu Feng to hit the wall. Chu Hen, who had experienced more than a dozen failures, was almost in a mess, and his body was covered with cuts and bruises. However, at this moment, Chu Hen had yet to awaken from his cultivation state. In the air in front of him, there was a rune that flickered with flowing light. Unending streams of spiritual energy of the heaven and earth poured into the rune like 100 rivers entering the ocean, and integrated into Chu Hen's body. At this moment, Chu Hen moved his mind, and a white light flashed in his palms. A crystal-clear upper-grade primordial crystal stone appeared in each of his hands. Chapter 154. The The noon sun was exceptionally warm and gorgeous. Unknowingly, it was already autumn, the autumn air was crisp and refreshing, but the maple leaves at the maple forest stakes in Tensei Prefecture were as red as fire. Chu Hen didn't come today? Shilan was dressed lightly, accentuating her exquisite curves. Her long purple hair was tied up high, and she was elegant and refined. The two temperaments of coldness and gentleness coexisted. Regardless of the time, her stunning appearance would always attract the attention of others. Among the dozens of direct disciples in front of her, only that youth was missing. It had been a few months since he entered the school, but that youth hadn't come to her lessons even once. This had never happened in Shilan's 4 years of teaching. Zhou Lu, He Qingyuan, Lu Yu Bianhong, and the others. They looked at each other with a strange expression. This kid really doesn't know what's good for him. Bianhong cursed in a low voice. Instructor, I'll call senior brother Chu Hen over. Li Hui said. No need. Shilan's red lips moved slightly, and her beautiful eyes wandered as she said, Let's start today's cultivation lesson. Li Hui and Zhou Lu, you two go into the wooden stakes array. Yes, instructor. At this moment, the door and windows were tightly shut, and there was a restless power in the room. Rays of bright light lingered around Chu Hen's body, like flowing ripples. In front of him, the spirit-gathering seal emitted an active aura, and the exquisite runes were like crystal glass, constantly accelerating Chu Hen's absorption of spiritual power. Chu Hen held a high-grade primordial crystal stone in each hand. On the ground beside the bed, there were 2 piles of rubble and debris from the primordial crystal stone's consumption. Buzz buzz. A steady stream of spiritual power flowed from the primordial crystal stone into Chu Hen's 8 extraordinary meridians, and after the spiritual power integrated into his meridians, it split into 2 directions, one toward the Dantian's Qi Sea, and the other toward the Naiwen Palace. The spiritual energy contained in the primordial crystal stone could be transformed into true inner force, and could also be fused with Reiki energy. However, relatively speaking, Reiki energy was more difficult to cultivate than true inner force. Therefore, under normal circumstances, the amount of energy and time spent on improving the realm of a tattoo artist was more than that of Wu Xiu. Under Chu Hen's gradual control, the power released by the spirit-gathering seal became easier to control. Compared to usual, the speed at which Chu Hen absorbed high-grade primordial crystal stones increased by nearly 4 times. Kacha, suddenly, along with 2 crisp sounds, a crack quietly appeared on the 2 primordial crystal stones in Chu Hen's palms. As more and more cracks appeared, the primordial crystal stones lost their original bright luster. Buzz, in the next moment, Chu Hen opened his eyes and a powerful aura that surpassed the 6th level of the element opening realm was released from his body. In his deep eyes, there was a fierce aura that was like a torch. Phew! Chu Hen let out a deep breath, and the aura outside his body converged. At the same time, the spirit-gathering seal floating in front of him also disappeared. The 7th level of the element opening realm. Feeling the strength of the surging true yuan in his Dantian's Qi Si, Chu Hen's face couldn't help but reveal a smile. This spirit-gathering seal is really amazing. It can really be called an accelerator for cultivation. Of course, before Chu Hen went to the Tianqi mountain range, he had consumed the Yun Yuan pill that was exchanged for 5,000 star points. After that, he also ate a few blood yuan fruit. The huge amount of power that he had accumulated almost made him reach the peak of the 6th level. Now that he used the spirit-gathering seal to speed up his cultivation, it was normal for him to break through to the 7th level in a short period of time. Immediately, Chu Hen integrated his consciousness into the Naiwen Palace. He was surprised to find that the Dao seed had obviously grown a lot. Although it was still a small sprout, the 2 new leaves were a size bigger, and there was a tendency for more leaves to grow. Chu Hen's eyes focused, and with a command of his mind, he circulated a trace of Reiki energy. Subsequently, a strand of golden light was released from between his right fingers. An illusory talisman appeared in his palm. This was a talisman that was about the size of a thumb. The energy fluctuation was obscure to the point of being negligible, and the gentle light was like the flame of a candle. Chu Hen condensed this talisman purely on a whim. This was a beginner-level talisman that could emit light, and it didn't have any special use. Even so, Chu Hen was still extremely happy, and his pitch-black eyes flickered with a bright luster. One day, I will not only step onto the peak of the martial Tao, but I will also shine brightly on the path of Tao markings, Chu Hen said resolutely in his heart. Subsequently, Chu Hen casually dispersed the talisman in his palm, and then got off the bed. But just as he got off the bed, Chu Hen was stunned. Only then did he discover that his room was in a complete mess. The tables and cabinets were overturned, and even quite a few tiles on the roof had fallen. What's going on? Had it been robbed? Mu Feng! Chu Hen shouted as he casually opened the door and went out. As soon as he opened the door, a brick flew towards him. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and a surging aura was released from his body. Bang! The brick exploded in midair less than half a meter away from Chu Hen. Before Chu Hen could figure out what was going on, Mu Feng's angry scolding came first. "You bastard! How dare you come out? I'll go to your second uncle's third aunt's fourth aunt." Chu Hen was startled, and he saw Mu Feng standing on the roof with a hammer in his hand. He was repairing the house. What made Chu Hen even more surprised was that Mu Feng's head was wrapped with a layer of white gauze, and a trace of blood could be vaguely seen under the gauze. "You're injured? Did I hit you?" Scram! The more Mu Feng spoke, the angrier he became, and he almost threw the hammer in his hand. "You're still pretending? It's not a problem if you destroyed the courtyard, but you had to throw such a huge rock at my head. Do you know that my charm has plummeted because of this piece of gauze? Your third uncle's eldest son-in-law's ninth nephews?" Hearing this, Chu Hen finally understood. It turned out that the reason why the courtyard was in such a mess was unintentionally caused by him. "I'm sorry, I was afraid of being disturbed when I was cultivating, so I sealed off my hearing and perception." Chu Hen smiled apologetically. The corner of Mu Feng's eye twitched and he gritted his teeth. "Mu Feng, are these wooden planks enough?" A hearty voice was heard, and then a sturdy young man walked in from the door. He was holding a pile of wood in his hands. "Lei Zhen." Chu Hen's eyes lit up. "Chu Hen, you're awake?" The person was St. Bell City's Lei Zhen. When he saw Chu Hen, he smiled politely. "This is..." Chu Hen pointed at the wood in his hands. "I was the one who asked him to stay here." Mu Feng sat on the roof and crossed his legs. He had a look of "I'm the boss here" on his face. "Damn it, little mouse left, and you bastard just had to be a cultivation maniac. When this handsome Mu Feng is bored to death, I don't even have someone to brag to." Lei Zhen smiled embarrassedly. His reserved manner was completely different from when they first met in St. Bell City. Of course, compared to when he first came to Tensei Prefecture, he was much better. "Come, Lei Zhen, let's fix this broken house as soon as possible. I'll bring you to the brothel tonight." "Oh no, I mean, to see the lanterns." "Okay." Lei Zhen's temper was really similar to Mu Feng's. The two of them had only known each other for a short time, but they were already so close. Chu Hen couldn't help but find it funny. Mu Feng was really a troublemaker. But no matter what, it was Lei Zhen's first time in the imperial capital, so he should have someone to show him around. "Do you need my help?" Chu Hen smiled. "Don't, please don't." Mu Feng raised the hammer in his hand, his face full of disgust. "You better stay away from me. In these 7 days, I've only been fixing this broken house. I don't like seeing you now, so don't bother me anymore. When this handsome Mu Feng gets angry, I can even beat up my father." Lei Zhen was dumbfounded by Mu Feng's domineering attitude. Chu Hen's face was full of black lines as he muttered to himself, "I've been in this room for 7 days?" Then, Chu Hen didn't say anything else and walked outside by himself. When he saw this situation, Lei Jun immediately looked at Mu Feng with an admiring gaze. You scared him away. Of course. Mu Feng raised the hammer with one hand and his eyes were full of smugness. Stop talking. Hurry up and move the wooden boards up. Try to finish it by the afternoon. Then, go take a shower and change your clothes. This handsome Feng will teach you how to pick up girls. Amen, no problem. Chu Hen didn't think that so many days had passed just like that. Thinking that his star points could be refreshed 4 days ago, he immediately headed for Nebula Pavilion without another word. Today, Nebula Pavilion was relatively quiet inside and outside. After all, very few people would farm new star points at this time. As soon as he entered, Chu Hen's gaze casually swept across the star point ranking on the wall to the west. On the ranking, the three geniuses, Ji Xian, Xiao Yan, and Bai Yue, firmly occupied the top 3 spots. These 3 genius students were the strongest disciples under the 3 core instructors, Shi Lan, Song Chunglai, and Shadowless. They were also the 3 strongest people in the entire Tensei Prefecture. Ji Xian's star points had long since surpassed 100,000. Xiao Yan and Bai Yue were also close to this number. It was easy to imagine how outstanding these 3 people were. Cough cough. A soft cough brought Chu Hen's gaze back. He saw an old man standing behind a marble counter. The old man's face was full of wrinkles. One of his eyes was turbid like a normal old man's, while the other was amber with a white dot in the center like an eagle's eye. Student Chu Hen greets Elder Ing. Chu Hen cupped his fists and said, "You're 4 days late." Elder Ing said indifferently. It was obvious that he had a good impression of Chu Hen. Amen, I was delayed by a bit of business. As Chu Hen spoke, he walked to the side of the counter and took out a piece of jade that looked like an ink stone from his storage ring. There was a silver pentagram on the jade stone. This item was called the Star Ink Stone. It was used by the students of the Tensei Prefecture to farm new star points, and a silver pentagram represented 5,000 star points. Previously, Chu Hen had obtained first place in the Star Elite competition, so he had obtained 5,000 star points for the first time. And this time, how many star points could he obtain from the Heaven Lake Demon Hunt mission? Chapter 155. I'll have to trouble you, Elder Ing. Chu Hen politely placed the star ink stone on the counter and moved it in front of Elder Ing. Elder Ing nodded slightly and did not delay. He extended his withered palm and placed it on the star ink stone. Subsequently, a wave of vigorous true origin energy was released from his palm. Buzz buzz. In the next moment, the seemingly ordinary star ink stone emitted a gentle light. Chu Hen's face revealed a faint look of anticipation. Then, next to the original silver 5-pointed star pattern, a similar 5-pointed star slowly appeared. 5,000 star points. Chu Hen's eyes lit up. Instructor Zhuo Mo actually gave him a comprehensive evaluation of 5,000 star points? This was truly unexpected. Just as Chu Hen was about to say thank you, a slight wave of energy came from the star ink stone again. Under Chu Hen's astonished gaze, another silver 5-pointed star pattern appeared. 2 silver 5-pointed stars. 10,000 star points? What was going on? Chu Hen looked at Elder Ing, who had retracted his palm, in astonishment. What? Is it too little? Elder Ing asked indifferently. No, why is it 10,000 star points? Chu Hen asked. So it's because it's too much? Elder Ing raised his eyelids slightly and slowly took out a booklet with a golden frame from under the counter. He opened it to the first page and said, Chu Hen, the Heaven Lake Demon Hunt mission has a comprehensive evaluation of 10,000 star points. That's right, Chu Hen still did not react. Elder Ying's lips moved slightly and he continued, You performed well in the Heaven Lake Demon Hunt, 1,000 star points. You saved 2 companions from the pursuit of the single-horned ghost monkeys, 3,000 star points. You saved 1 companion from the butcher hand vampire, 2,000 star points. You defeated the geniuses of Tifeng Province and Spirit Rhino Martial House in St. Bell City and won glory for our school, 4,000 star points. Comprehensive evaluation, 10,000 star points. After listening to this detailed explanation, Chu Hen finally understood where these 10,000 star points came from. Amidst the surprise, Chu Hen couldn't help but suddenly come back to his senses. Today seemed to be the day that mentor Shilan taught. Missed it again? I should still be able to make it. Chu Hen turned around and looked at the sky outside. It was just past noon, so it wasn't too late to rush over now. Elder Ing, what can 15,000 star points be exchanged for? 1 Spirit Burst Pill. Starting from next month, you will be able to receive 50 mid-grade primal crystal stones every month. Spirit Burst Pill? Chu Hen raised his eyebrows. He had no interest in mid-grade primordial crystal stones. The explosive spirit pill is specially made for people in the elemental opening late stage. Compared to the profound spirit pill, the energy it contains is more than 10 times stronger. It's not recommended for those who haven't reached the 7th level of the elemental opening realm or above to consume it. If you don't control it well, the medicinal energy will injure your meridians. Elder Ing replied casually. He remembered that before he went to the Sky Lake mountain range, Chu Hen's cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the elemental opening realm. In Elder Ying's opinion, it was naturally impossible for him to reach the 7th level of the elemental opening realm so quickly. However, Chu Hen had already made a decision in his heart. He said resolutely, "Elder Ing, give me a spirit burst pill." Elder Ing wanted to persuade him, but when he saw Chu Hen's determined gaze, he didn't say anything else. He casually took out a small porcelain bottle and placed it on the counter. Remember, on the path of martial arts, don't bite off more than you can chew. Thank you, Elder Ing, for your teachings. I will definitely remember it. Chu Hen smiled as he accepted the porcelain bottle containing the spirit burst pill. He cupped his fists and bade farewell to Elder Ing. I still have urgent matters to attend to, so I will take my leave first. Go. Goodbye. After speaking, Chu Hen kept the star ink stone on the counter and hurriedly left the door, heading in the direction of the maple forest stump. He had been in the hospital for a few months, but he hadn't listened to teacher Shilan's lecture even once. If this continued, he was really worried that he would be expelled. Looking at Chu Hen's figure that was hurriedly leaving, Elder Ying's face revealed a faint smile. Subsequently, his gaze subconsciously swept towards the star branch ranking on the wall on the west side. 15,000 star points in less than 3 months. This is comparable to the record set by the first place. Elder Ing muttered to himself in a low voice, his sharp eyes looking at the first ranker of the star branch ranking with a profound meaning. Ji Xian, the number 1 person in the Tensei Prefecture, and also the direct disciple of teacher Shilan. Elder Ing squinted his eyes. Looking at the time, they should be back by now. Maple Forest Stump. Senior brother Chu Hen, you're here? We've all finished our training. Li Hui, Zhou Lu, He Qingyuan, and the others, who were preparing to leave, had just finished their lessons and training for the day when Chu Hen rushed over, sweating profusely. Chu Hen first smiled embarrassedly at everyone, then walked in front of teacher Shilan with an apologetic expression. Teacher, I'm sorry. I've been cultivating since returning from the Sky Lake mountain range, and forgot the time. I'm really sorry. Not far away, He Qingyuan, Lu Yu, and the others all smiled and shook their heads. Bian Hong and Wu Zhe snorted disdainfully and cast indifferent gazes at him. Shilan's beautiful eyes lifted slightly, and her delicate and gentle eyes were suffused with faint ripples. You stay first. The others can be dismissed. The moment these words came out, everyone was startled. Was Shilan planning to teach Chu Hen alone? Even though they had doubts in their hearts, everyone still followed her instructions, packed up their things, and left one after another. Soon, only Chu Hen and Shilan were left. The fiery red leaves continuously floated down from the maple forest, creating a different kind of beauty. "Teacher, I promise I won't be late next time," Chu-Hen said. "It's fine. As long as your strength is improving, it's fine even if you don't come to my lessons." "Teacher, I really didn't do it on purpose. I'm not angry either." Shilan looked at Chu-Hen with a very gentle gaze. It seemed to be the same as the others, but also seemed a little different. This kind of feeling was a little similar to a little sister indulging her younger brother. "Follow me," Shilan suddenly said. Without waiting for Chu-Hen to ask more, she had already walked towards a corner of the maple forest. Chu-Hen didn't think too much and followed closely behind. Not long after, the two of them arrived at an open space. The ground was filled with fallen petals and red maple leaves. "Teacher, what are we doing here?" "Of course, to make up for all the things you left behind." Shilan's red lips were like cherry blossoms, and she was beautiful. Especially today, her light clothes were more restrained, outlining her almost perfect curve. This stunning beauty standing in front of him made Chu-Hen feel a little unnatural. "What's wrong?" "No, nothing." Chu-Hen faintly smiled and said, About the battle between you and Wei Qingfan, I give you an overall evaluation of 8 points, excluding the difference in your cultivation level." 8 points? Chu-Hen couldn't help but clench his fists, and his expression became serious. "I always try my best to make up for the shortcomings of my students and improve their strength. Perhaps you don't know that there is a big weakness in your spear technique, and this weakness will become your fatal flaw." Fatal flaw? Chapter 156. A fatal flaw? Chu-Hen's pupils shrank involuntarily as he stared at Shilan's beautiful face in confusion. Although Shilan was not much older than Chu-Hen, as a core member of the Tensei Prefecture's advanced tutor team, no one would doubt Shilan's words. However, Chu-Hen did not think that there was any problem with his spear technique. Just by facing a powerful genius like Wei Qingfan, he was still undefeated. This was the best proof. Shilan did not explain too much to Chu-Hen's confusion. She looked at him with her beautiful eyes and opened her red lips. "Use your full strength." "What? I will suppress my realm to the same level as you." Hearing this, Chu-Hen clenched his hands into fists and a bit of seriousness surged between his brows. Looking at Shilan's calm and unwavering gaze, he couldn't help but feel like he was being looked down upon. "What? You don't dare to fight with me?" Shilan said indifferently. "Tutor, I'm sorry." Whoosh, a sharp and clear sound of waves rang out in the air. Following that, the cold and sharp demon Punisher spear was held in Chu-Hen's hand. A biting cold domineering aura arose spontaneously, and the red leaves on the ground were lifted up by a layer. Whoosh! Chu-Hen's eyes turned cold, and he instantly launched a frontal thrust with the demon punishment spear. At the same time, overbearing black chi spread like flames and immediately covered the tip of the spear. The air between the two seemed to be torn apart, and the surging momentum of the spear pressed down like a flood. Just as the demon punishment spear was about to touch Shilan's body, she dodged to the side like a butterfly. Whoosh! The sharp tip of the spear slashed across her left shoulder. Chu-Hen saw the opportunity, and quickly changed his attack. He held the spear with both hands and swept it towards Shilan. His reaction isn't bad, but the combination of these two moves is too abrupt. "His strength is halved," Shilan said softly. At the same time, she raised her jade-like hand and struck the tip of the demon Punisher's spear. The demon executioner's spear immediately changed its attack trajectory, and was sent flying upwards. Chu-Hen was startled. Just as he was about to withdraw his attack, he changed his tactic. However, Shilan did not plan to give him the slightest chance. Her figure was graceful and agile as she flashed in front of Chu-Hen. Raising her palm, she struck towards his chest. Chu-Hen seemed to be caught off guard. In his haste, he used the demon punishing spear to face her horizontally, gathering all his true essence on the body of the spear, intending to block his opponent's move. Bang! Shilan's jade-like palm landed lightly on the body of the demon punishing spear. Chaotic true essence spread out in all directions, causing a thick layer of dead leaves to rise from the ground. Even though Shilan controlled her realm to be at the same level as Chu Hen, the hidden force produced by this palm still caused Chu Hen's arm to feel a little numb. Chu Hen hurriedly retreated. Shilan followed and maintained a close distance with Chu Hen. Chu Hen's demon Punisher spear could not be used at all. Shilan seemed to stick close to Chu Hen as she attacked. No matter where he retreated, Shilan would follow his rhythm and pace. Chu Hen felt sullen. This feeling was like he was trapped in a small cage. The width of this cage was not even the length of the demon Punisher spear. It was fine if the demon Punisher spear could not be used, but now it seemed to have become a burden. Teacher, are you really controlling your cultivation level to be at the same level as me? Chu Hen asked doubtfully. No! I knew it. I've suppressed my cultivation level to be even lower than yours. It can be said that I'm fighting above my level. Chu Hen was immediately speechless. He was so depressed that he could not speak. However, the energy waves emitted from Shilan's body proved that she was not lying. The strength of her aura was only at the 6th level of the element opening realm. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had exchanged no less than 20 moves. Chu Hen was completely suppressed. He did not counterattack even once and was completely reduced to a defensive state. All sorts of stifling feelings surged forth. When he was unable to retaliate after suffering a series of attacks, Chu Hen immediately erupted. He released the Demon Destroyer spear in his right hand, and a powerful palm energy surged forth as he attacked Shilan. Buzz, the ferocious power swept away the layers of fallen leaves on the ground like a stormy sea. The flow of air also increased, as if a powerful whirlwind was blowing. However, Shilan shook her head. Haste breeds chaos. It's a taboo to fight with the enemy. In Shilan's eyes, Chu Hen's powerful palm attack was full of flaws. She merely dodged to the side when Chu Hen's palm energy was about to reach her, easily dodging the other party's attack. Chu Hen's expression changed. In the next instant, Shilan lightly twisted her wrist and once again struck Chu Hen's left arm. Bang! An intense hidden force surged towards him. Chu Hen immediately felt his arm go numb. His palm loosened and the demon Punisher spear in his hand was directly sent flying. Zing! The demon Punisher spear drew a parabola in the air. The tip of the spear landed on the ground and steadily sank into the soil. With your weapon taken away, your chances of defeating me are even slimmer. Along with Shilan's soft voice, a verdant willow leaf appeared between her slender fingers. With a flick of her wrist, the willow leaf flew out with a gentle flick of her finger. The speed was so fast that it was like a shooting star that traversed the night sky. Hiss! A small hole was instantly cut on the side of Chu Hen's shoulder. The battle quietly ended. Shilan did not continue to attack. However, Chu Hen stood on the spot with a dull expression. He blankly looked at the hole on his shoulder. If Shilan wanted his life, there would be no problem at all. A blow. It was definitely a heavy blow. Chu Hen, who had always been full of confidence in his spear technique, could be said to have suffered a heavy blow. If it was under normal circumstances, it would have been fine. However, Shilan had suppressed her strength to be even lower than his. This caused Chu Hen to feel uncomfortable in his heart. Do you know your weakness? Shilan looked at Chu Hen and said, Yes, I'm not flexible enough. Flexibility is one aspect, but the most important point is distance. A spear user must maintain a certain distance from his opponent in order to be able to gain an advantageous offensive. It's very obvious that when you fought with Wei Qingfan that day, if you didn't have a high-grade spirit talisman, you would have lost without a doubt within 3 moves. He saw through your weakness. Chu Hen clenched his fists, a hint of coldness surging in his eyes. Shilan ignored the other party's negative emotions and continued, Do you still remember the situation of his second move, the Death Sun Wheel? According to what I said, the Death Sun Wheel could be thrown out, but he didn't do so. He attacked you head-on from a close distance because he knew that even if you could block the first Death Sun wheel, you definitely wouldn't be able to dodge the second one. Hearing this, the astonishment in Chu Hen's heart increased. At the same time, he had a new understanding of Wei Qingfan. This person was truly someone that could not be underestimated. I know what to do. Chu Hen's eyelids lifted, his eyes revealing two rays of determination. And Shilan nodded, her beautiful eyes suffused with a gentle light. This is a problem with your spear technique. If you can make up for this deficiency, I will give you a comprehensive evaluation of 9 points. 9 points? What about the other point? Chu Hen asked. At this moment, he no longer had any doubts about Shilan's teaching ability. This young woman in front of him, who was not much older than him, truly had an admirable ability. If your weapon is taken away, what will you do next? Just like now. Shilan looked at Chu Hen and said, Chu Hen was slightly stunned. What should he do if his weapon was taken away? Naturally, I will use other life-saving trump cards. You have life-saving trump cards, and others will naturally have them too. In my opinion, in a fight with an enemy, the best way is to force the opponent to use his trump card first, judge the situation in a very short period of time, and then strike later. Of course, what I want to say is that no matter how good your spear technique is, there will always be flaws. For example, in terms of agility, it is not as good as a sword or a dagger, Shilan said. Chu Hen let out a sigh of relief, his eyes surging with thoughts. Indeed, in the weapon manual, the spear had the reputation of being the king of all weapons. It was domineering, powerful, calm, and cold. As the saying goes, an inch longer, an inch stronger. In a battle with an enemy, it had many advantages. However, if an enemy had judgment like Shilan's and could use close-range agility to attack Chu Hen, the spear would become a burden in a situation where it could not be used effectively. Instructor, do you mean that I should change to another weapon? Chu Hen looked at her. That's not it. Shilan shook her head. Although the spear is not as agile as a sword or a saber, it is still a good weapon. I suggest that you try to cultivate a close-range weapon while perfecting your spear technique. Of course, it is very likely that you will not be able to balance both at the same time, resulting in your mastery of both weapons being mediocre. There are a lot of people like this. Chu Hen raised his handsome eyebrows slightly and smiled. But there are also people who can master both weapons to the point of perfection, causing their enemies to be at a loss as to what to do. Shilan smiled, her bright eyes and white teeth. Her elegant and refined smile was very moving. If you can master the other weapon, it will be a surprise to those enemies who are familiar with you. I believe that after the incident in Holy Bell City, many people have already begun to study your spear technique. If they target your weakness, it will be more embarrassing for you. Shilan's voice paused slightly before she continued. If you change to another weapon, then your weakness will no longer be a flaw. Do you understand what I mean? Chu Hen nodded solemnly. I have always believed that with talent and hard work, there is nothing that cannot be done. I will try to learn another weapon without affecting the improvement of my spear technique. Instructor, what weapon do you recommend I use? I think this suits you very well.